Chapter 1267. The Martial Emperors of the Heavenly Province Academy, the Divine Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas, and the ancient noble clans all looked at Xiaochun in disbelief. Xiaochun had relied on his sudden attack and the sharp spirit finger to send the black-clad old man flying earlier. Furthermore, based on the might of Xiaochun's sharp spirit finger, it was not very profound. If it were the complete version of the sharp spirit finger, the black-clad old man would not even be able to stand up. There was only one possibility. Xiaochun had not practiced the sharp spirit finger to perfection, only reaching small perfection. Xiaochun wanted to challenge Emperor Wu with his half-baked sharp spirit finger as a consummation blue-robed emperor? That was no different from a fool's dream. Haha. The Blue Dragon King truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. We will definitely come and watch 3 days from now. The Emperor Wu's left one after another, their loud laughter filled with disdain. After the other Emperor Wu's left, Lan Qiaofeng's face immediately sank. Little fellow, are you crazy? Xiaochun raised his head and asked. Why do you say that? Lan Qiaofeng replied solemnly. I do not deny that you can hold your own against Emperor Wu right now. However, that is just that. If you really want to fight to the death, given Emperor Wu's golden body and the strength of his primordial energy, you will definitely die if this drags on. The sharp spirit finger is indeed fearsome when used to deal a fatal blow. However, in a true battle to the death, the other party will not give you a chance to deal a fatal blow. The moment you use the sharp spirit finger will be the moment of your death. When Xiaochun heard this stern reprimand, he did not feel any repulsion. He could still hear the concern in Lan Qiaofeng's words. Smiling faintly, Xiaochun said, This junior would like to exchange pointers with senior. Are you sure about exchanging pointers with me? Lan Qiaofeng asked. Xiaochun nodded. I'm sure. Lan Qiaofeng thought of something. He smiled and said, Very well, I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. Do your best. I will suppress my strength to that of a first heaven layer Emperor Wu, and have a proper exchange with you. If you can defeat me, I will allow you to go up 3 days later. After saying that, Lan Qiaofeng extended his right finger and tapped his chest a few times, using a secret technique to suppress his cultivation. And from the looks of it, it was impossible for him to recover in a short period of time. This somewhat confused Xiaochun. In his eyes, Lan Qiaofeng was now a genuine first heaven Emperor Wu. If not for knowing Lan Qiaofeng's true strength, Xiaochun would have fallen for the other party's tricks. When Lan Qiaofeng saw Xiaochun's curiosity, he explained with a smile. In the past, I had some small tricks as an assassin. Sometimes, I had to lower my strength before I could perfectly conceal myself. Once I execute this secret technique, I will have to wait at least half a day before I can recover my strength. So, you can exchange moves with me without worry. Xiaochun smiled and said, Senior seems to be very confident. Using only a first heaven layer, you will not be able to block me. When Lan Qiaofeng heard that, he was stunned. Then he laughed loudly and said, You are worried about me? Worry about yourself then. To put it bluntly, I feel that a first heaven layer Emperor Wu is a little too much. Very well. In that case, sorry for the offense. Xiaochun smiled faintly and performed a cupped fist salute. The instant he raised his head, he stretched out his hand and hacked down with his saber. In that instant, an electric light tore through the air. Xiaochun drove all 100 strands of primordial energy in his body and gathered them on his saber. The pure white lunar shadow saber flickered with light as it casually chopped down. Everywhere it passed, black tears appeared in space. The strong primordial energy surged in Xiaochun's body, driving the surrounding power of the world to form 100 roaming dragons dancing around wildly. This caused the world to change. Space twisted, and the different scenes in the surroundings spun quickly. Lan Qiaofeng goggled, not daring to believe the scene before him. He smiled helplessly and said, Little fellow, you were so quiet. It turns out that you were hiding such a great trump card. You made this old man worry for so long. You nearly tricked me as well. However, this little bit of skill is not enough to shake me. Xiaochun brandished the dagger in his hand, and strands of primordial energy leaped about. 100 formless roaming dragons appeared behind Lan Qiaofeng as well, causing space to twist and the surrounding scenery to change unpredictably. Dang. Lan Xiaofeng casually swung the dagger and blocked Xiao Chen's lightning-fast saber strike. The instant the weapons clashed, the world spun around and space twisted. When Mo Chun and the others rushed over, all they saw was a distorted scene. In that scene, Xiao Chen's and Lan Xiaofeng's figures were stretched infinitely, impossible to see clearly. After the group focused all their mental energy into their eyes, they finally managed to peer through the layers of distorted space and see a clear image. In the air, Xiao Chen actually used his flawless saber technique to fight evenly with Lan Xiaofeng in close combat. Lan Xiaofeng's two disciples, Lan Xiaobai and Lan Tianji, were stunned when they saw this. To think that Master does not hold an advantage in close combat. Master has always said that even sovereign martial emperors do not dare to get within 3 centimeters of him. This time he really met his match. Although the group was shocked, their earlier worries were already swept away. Right now it was clear that Lan Xiaofeng and Xiao Chun were exchanging pointers and not a battle to the death. This meant that Xiao Chun had already walked out of it and cleared his heart demon. Whoosh! Suddenly, everyone felt an extremely strong might and pressure, forcing them back 100 meters uncontrollably. They felt as if a rock was pressing down on their chests. The two were originally evenly matched in the air. Suddenly, Lan Xiaofeng was forced out. Many treasured sabers flickering with electricity buzzed endlessly around Xiao Chun. With a thought, Xiao Chun could form a saber. Saber domain. These 2 words appeared in the minds of Mo Chun and the others at the same time. Xiao Chun comprehended a saber domain. In the Emperor Wu realm, experts who could comprehend a domain were rare. However, Xiao Chun, a consummation blue-robed emperor, actually comprehended his own saber domain. Sharp spirit finger. Xiao Chun, who had used the saber domain to create an opportunity, quickly executed his killing move. This time, he used the sharp spirit finger at full power, not holding back at all. 9 electric whirlpools gathered in Xiao Chen's chest. With a thought, they gathered at his fingertips. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out, causing the entire space to shake violently. Everyone nearby felt an intense pain in their eardrums. Xiao Chen's timing was very ruthless. It happened to be the instant Lan Xiaofeng was caught off guard and sent flying by his thunder saber domain. Lan Xiaofeng had no time to dodge this finger strike. He could only take it head-on. Electric light burst out, and Lan Xiaofeng's clothes were blasted to shreds. His skin was charred all over, and his hair stood on end, flickering with lingering electric light and giving off black smoke. After the fallen Lan Xiaofeng stood up, he looked like a refugee fleeing for his life. He no longer had the air of an expert or senior. Master, are you all right? Lan Xiaobai and Lan Xiaofeng asked as they walked over to support Lan Xiaofeng, pinching their noses. Lan Xiaofeng angrily flung the 2 away. His face was already charred from the explosion, making it impossible to make out any expression. He snorted coldly and said, "You are really ruthless. If not for my Emperor Wu golden body already reaching the 6th heaven, you would have taken my old life." It could be seen that the skin on Lan Xiaofeng's body was rapidly growing back. Lan Xiaofeng waved his hand and looked coldly at Xiao Chun before turning to leave. After Lan Xiaofeng left, Lan Xiaofeng and Lan Xiaobai could no longer hold back their laughter. Xiao Chun landed and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Xiaobai, was I too ruthless?" Lan Xiaobai could not stop laughing. It's fine. This master of mine loves to brag. In the past, when he taught us, he always suppressed his cultivation to the same level as ours, beating us up miserably. This time, you have taken revenge for us." Xiao Chun felt embarrassed in his heart. He said, "However, Senior seems to be angry." Lan Xiaofeng guffawed and said, "How can I not be angry? You blew your own trumpet, and you even turned black. Don't say anything. Let me laugh for a while more. Ha ha ha." However, suddenly, Lan Xiaofeng discovered that Xiao Chun was continuously signaling him with his eyes. Lan Xiaobai also recovered his serious appearance. A bad feeling spread in Lan Xiaofeng's heart. When he turned his head back, he happened to see Lan Xiaofeng, who had already changed his attire. He said awkwardly, "Master, I absolutely did not mean to laugh at you. Lan Xiaofeng interrupted him. "I understand. You just missed the way I taught you in the past. Starting tomorrow, I will undergo special training for a month. Don't. Master. Lan Qiaofeng wailed. Lan Qiaofeng sized up Xiao Chen again, causing Xiao Chen to feel nervous for some reason. This time he had really gone overboard. Little fellow, you really comprehended a saber domain. Come with me. Lan Qiaofeng said with a straight face as he walked forward. Such a stance made Xiao Chen feel even more nervous. Along the way, Lan Qiaofeng did not say a word. This made Xiao Chen feel even more unfathomable. Just like that, after walking for about an hour, the two arrived at an even more desolate mountain peak. Xiao Chen knew that this was where Lan Qiaofeng usually cultivated. This old man liked peace and quiet. Lan Qiaofeng turned around and looked at Xiao Chen. Then he circled around Xiao Chen and said with a smile, "Brat, you are really good. Since this old man became famous, I have never embarrassed myself like this." Xiao Chen smiled awkwardly and said, I don't dare. Senior is too serious." Lan Qiaofeng said with a sullen expression. "You don't dare? What else do you not dare to do? Even if it is for the upcoming Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, there is no need for you to work so hard and refine more than 3 peak-grade demon fiend rocks at the same time. Tell me, how many did you refine?" Lan Qiaofeng's stare made Xiao Chen feel somewhat guilty. He whispered, 7. 7. Lan Qiaofeng cried out hoarsely, his eyes wide open. "What should I say to you? Never mind. Perhaps I don't understand the pressure you are under. 7 peak-grade demon fiend rocks. No wonder you could comprehend your own domain." Although Lan Qiaofeng's words were stern, Xiao Chen could still sense the concern hidden in them. So he did not dare to rebut. "Back then, I was like you, thinking that I could undergo 3 sovereign tribulations and reach prime in one go. In the end, I ended up in such a state." When Lan Qiaofeng recalled the past, he revealed a rare sadness in his eyes. "Undergoing 3 sovereign tribulations in a row? That works too?" Xiao Chen looked at Lan Qiaofeng with some surprise. Unexpectedly, this old man had such a past. Chapter 1268. Lan Qiaofeng explained. "Don't find it strange. The Yingzongtian you know underwent 3 sovereign tribulations in a row, gaining the strength to fight with primes. Back then, the Thunder King was the same. However, my baleful aura is too heavy, and I overestimated my strength." Xiao Chen said quickly, "Senior, don't worry. In the future, when this junior really becomes a martial emperor, I will definitely help you search for divine herbs that can extend your lifespan." Lan Qiaofeng smiled and said, "It's good that you have the intention. There is no need for you to worry about this. I know my own matters the best. I called you here for another reason." "What is it? Show me your saber domain." Although Xiao Chen did not know what the other party was planning, he still did as he was told. "Senior, please move back a little." Boom! With a thought, thousands of saber lights shot out of Xiao Chen's body. The sabers flickered with electricity, buzzing endlessly. Strong saber intents gathered together. Wherever the saber pointed, a sharp aura seemed to be able to pierce through space. If it were a weak person standing in front of Xiao Chen, this sharp aura would have pierced thousands of holes into them. Xiao Chen, who was in the saber domain, was like a sovereign king. Everywhere he looked frightening, giving off a trace of the grace of a saber sovereign. "That's it?" Lan Qiaofeng, who was in the air, smiled coldly and took a step forward. "Kassier! Kassier!" The sabers in Xiao Chen's saber domain all shattered, turning into electricity and disappearing. This startled Xiao Chen. How can it be like this? It looked like the saber domain was about to crumble. The mental energy in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness surged continuously, turning into many sabers that shot out from his body, maintaining the saber domain from crumbling. However, this was still not enough. Every time a saber appeared in Xiao Chen's body, it would immediately shatter. In the end, the speed at which the saber domain formed could not keep up with the speed at which it shattered. When the saber domain completely crumbled, Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood and took 3 steps back, feeling dizzy. Suddenly, a fine drizzle fell from the sky. Lan Qiaofeng walked over step by step in the rain. The curtain of rain blurred Xiao Chen's vision. He could not see clearly whether it was a person or a saber that was walking over. He reached out his hand to wipe his face, but to his surprise he discovered that his hand was covered in blood. Only now did he realize that his entire body was covered in cuts and bruises. Every drop of rain that fell from the sky contained a boundless saber intent. Every drop of water was a murderous saber. The dagger spun around Lan Xiaofeng's fingers, and the rain stopped. Coincidentally, Lan Xiaofeng walked over to Xiaochen. Xiaochen was startled. Whose saber domain is this? A dagger was a short saber. Strictly speaking, a domain comprehended with a dagger could naturally be considered a saber domain. You are not stupid. This is indeed my saber domain. But why? You want to ask why I didn't use it when I fought you, right? Little fellow, your timing was so accurate. If I really tried to use it, I would have to fully open my saber domain, and you would die on the spot. Xiaochen felt shocked. To think that a saber domain could be used like that. This was truly an eye-opener. Your saber domain cannot even be considered a basic saber domain. It is very rough and full of openings. Even if I did not comprehend a saber domain, I have hundreds of ways to break it for you. Xiaochen suddenly startled awake. Why was Lan Xiaofeng looking for him? He quickly bowed and performed a cupped fist salute. Senior, please guide me. Lan Xiaofeng smiled without saying anything. He did not rush to agree to Xiaochen's request. Instead he asked, I can teach you, but you have to tell me what other trump cards you have. Xiaochen smiled embarrassedly and said, honestly speaking, this junior still has an emperor-grade secret treasure. That 5-colored starlight that fell from the sky earlier was actually the peak strike of this junior's secret treasure. Lan Xiaofeng felt slightly stunned. Then he scolded jokingly. Brat, you indeed still have more trump cards. 100 strands of primordial energy, the initial Thunder Saber domain, and an emperor-grade secret treasure. You tricked that old man from the 5 poison sect. Ahaha. Suddenly, Lan Xiaofeng's laughter stopped. Then he changed the topic. However, it is fine if you tricked him. Why did you trick this old man as well? Lan Xiaofeng was temperamental, his emotions changing unpredictably. Xiaochen found him somewhat unfathomable, not daring to reply. Brat, you are really black-hearted. However, you still have some comprehension ability. I'll teach you a move or two then. Let me ask you first, what is a saber domain? If you do not answer well, I will not teach you, Lan Xiaofeng said. Xiaochen felt helpless in his heart. Back then, you were the one who said that I could do whatever I wanted. However, Xiaochen could only say this in his heart. Right now, he had to think of how to answer Senior Lan's question. What was a saber domain? Initially, when a bladesman comprehended saber intent, it was just a form of intent. One could feel it but not grasp it, unable to see it clearly. After it advanced to a saber soul, it became tangible, something that could be clearly seen in the sea of consciousness. However, after it advanced to a saber domain, it became formless again, even more ethereal. It was like it had become a hazy state. One could not see it, touch it, or feel it. However, one could sense its existence just by looking at it. With a thought, the saber domain would immediately form, and that aura would burst forth from one's body. However, what exactly was a saber domain? Xiaochen really could not say. After thinking for a long time, he still could not describe it. Lan Xiaofeng looked at the frowning Xiaochen and revealed a mocking smile, waiting for Xiaochen's answer. I don't know. After a moment of silence, Xiaochen answered honestly, unable to answer. Lan Xiaofeng appeared stunned. Then he smiled and said, You are really a brat. You are very honest. If you give a long speech now, thinking yourself infallible, I will definitely turn around and leave. What I want is for you to not know. Xiaochen felt somewhat stunned. That works too? Is that for real? Senior, don't lie to me. Lan Xiaofeng smiled and said, Why would I lie to you? Something like a saber domain is ethereal and formless. Even I cannot explain it clearly. If you can explain it so clearly and logically, I really don't know how to teach you. When Xiaochen heard that, he entered deep thought. Lan Xiaofeng's words made him feel enlightened. The Thunder Saber domain is not for you to play around with. You are like a hedgehog, wrapping yourself up in it. I'll first teach you how to go from power to subtlety. How much you can comprehend will depend on your own ability. Although Lan Xiaofeng said that, His gaze as he looked at Xiaochun clearly brimmed with anticipation. Perhaps he saw a shadow of himself in Xiaochun, and he didn't want this young man to end up like him. From force to subtlety? Xiaochun asked in confusion. Lan Xiaofeng nodded and said, "That's right. Right now, your grasp of the Thunder Saber domain is still at the level of power. What is subtlety? Simply put, it is when others cannot see your saber, but can clearly feel your saber domain. For example, my upper water saber domain. With a thought, the drizzle falls silently. Even though the saber light cannot be seen, the saber is everywhere." Xiaochun immediately understood. That is to say, my Thunder Saber domain has to hide the saber light in the lightning. That's right. That is the direction. However, it is not as simple as you say. What you need to do is to merge your entire power into space. It is not as simple as hiding the saber light in the lightning. Instead, you need to hide your power in this entire space. With a thought, lightning and electric light will come out. Saber intent filling the air is everywhere, and can be used by you. Lightning and electric light came out. Saber intent filling the air was everywhere. Xiaochun felt like he was enlightened. His entire being became enlightened. Lan Xiaofeng had opened a door for him that he had never seen before. "I'll show you the difference." Lan Xiaofeng stretched out a finger and tapped Xiaochun's forehead. Instantly, many scenes flickered, forming a coherent image that appeared in Xiaochun's mind. In the scene, Lan Xiaofeng hovered in the air. His long hair fluttered about, and strong winds howled. Many short sabers with cold light floated beside him. Lan Xiaofeng's body exuded a boundless aura. His entire being seemed to merge with the saber domain around him. Everywhere he looked, Xiaochun's mind trembled. That aura was too sharp. How strong! This saber domain pushed Lan Xiaofeng's aura to its limits. Xiaochun asked himself if he would concede defeat on the spot. However, he kept feeling that something was off. Although this aura was strong, it was not as shocking as the scene of Lan Xiaofeng walking over step by step in the rain. I understand now. Senior is directly telling me the difference between before and after entering refinement. Indeed, I have to make a comparison before I can see the difference. The scene continued to change. Lan Xiaofeng started fighting continuously. Xiaochun watched carefully, not wanting to miss a single detail. Before entering refinement, Lan Xiaofeng had won every battle, chopping off his opponent's head. However, he always had wounds of various sizes on his body. That saber domain looked terrifyingly powerful, but his opponent would always have a chance to break it and injure Senior Lan. After entering refinement, Lan Xiaofeng won every battle. However, Senior Lan never got injured again. The saber intent filling the air was truly everywhere. Do you understand now? Lan Xiaofeng asked as he withdrew his hand. Xiaochun nodded. I don't fully understand, but I understand what Senior is trying to say. You only have strength, but you can't completely grasp it. You will always be found by your opponent. Only by being omnipresent and pervasive can we strike fear into our opponent's hearts. That's right, saber domain, saber domain. The emphasis is not on the word saber but on the word domain behind it. Inspiration flashed in Xiaochun's mind. Senior, does that mean that in the future, cultivating the saber domain will transfer to the state of space? Lan Xiaofeng revealed a gratified smile in his eyes. Just a hint and you understand. However, this is not something you can touch on right now. The state of space is broad and profound. Minor Heavenly Emperor, Wu can only scratch the surface of it. Greater Heavenly Emperor Wu can only gain some understanding of it. Only sovereign martial emperors can reach small perfection. The peak sovereign martial emperors of the Kunlun realm are all people with high attainments in the state of space. However, there is no need for you to think so much now. Just focus on comprehending from power to subtlety. Continue watching. I will demonstrate my state of water to you again. As Lan Xiaofeng taught Xiaochun, Lan Xiaobai and Emochun did not remain idle either. They were anxiously making arrangements for the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony in secret. The time was already set. All that was left was for Xiaochun to decide, and he could announce it to the world. On the other side, the news of Xiaochun starting a life-and-death battle with the 5 poison sects Martial Emperor Elder 3 days later instantly spread throughout the entire Western Sea. After that, It quickly spread through the heavenly starry ocean and reached the Kunlun continent. Chapter 1269. In less than a day, all the upper echelon of the peak factions of the Kunlun realm received this news. In the circle of martial emperors, this piece of news caused a huge commotion. Almost every martial emperor who met would talk about this news at the same time. Emperor Wu had always been aloof. No matter how strong cultivators who had not advanced to martial emperor were, they were like ants in Emperor Wu's eyes. Such a situation had persisted for many years. However, now, a consummation blue-robed emperor was going to challenge someone who had been a martial emperor for many years. This was simply too shocking. If an ordinary person did this, everyone would just treat it as a joke and not care. However, this challenger was the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochun, a youth who had created many miracles. Before he advanced to martial emperor, everyone in Emperor Wu's circle knew about him. The weight of this challenge was too great, so much so that Emperor Wu had to pay special attention to it. There was no other reason than the challenger's name. In a mountain manor in Heaven Dragon City, the few Emperor Wus who went to slay demons gathered together. Old Bai, your challenge this time kicked up a storm in our entire Emperor Wu's circle. How confident are you? An old man from the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace asked. Right now, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace had the greatest conflict with Xiaochun. Naturally, they paid the most attention to this battle. As long as Xiaochun died, the hearts of Heavenly Star Island's people would naturally die as well. The 5 poison sects Old Bai smiled and said, I do not dare to say that I am completely confident, but I have a 99% chance. I have already been a martial emperor for 500 years. As long as we can drag this out for 2 hours, he will not stand a chance at all. The cultivation techniques and martial techniques of my 5 poison sect will make him beg for death. However, that Xiaochun's sharp spirit finger is rather horrifying. Old Bai, you should be careful. An old man from an ancient noble clan said calmly. A hint of fear flashed in Old Bai's eyes. Of course, but it's not a trump card anymore. His telepathic finger hasn't been trained to perfection. I'll be able to deal with him if I'm careful. Besides, it's not like I'm completely unprepared. What preparations? The others asked curiously. The power of the telepathic finger was boundlessly ferocious. Could it be that Elder Bai already had a way to deal with it? Old Bai smiled mysteriously. There is still one more day. You will know when the time comes. I can only say that a major character of the Kunlun continent's deity race sent a clone here last night and came into contact with me alone. Emperor Forsaken. The others gasped in surprise. Emperor Forsaken was a big shot second only to the Thunder King, yet he was personally participating in this duel. Elder Bai neither denied nor admitted it. He said coldly, in short, this brat will die after tomorrow. The resources exchanged for his head will definitely be enough for me to pass the second heavenly tribulation. Envious expressions flashed in the eyes of the other Emperor Wus. Xiaochun's head was really valuable. Normally, no one dared to touch him. However, this time, he was the one who challenged them. In a battle to the death, if he killed Xiaochun, there would be no need to worry about the Thunder King's revenge. Xiaochun only had himself to blame. The few Emperor Wu's people started to congratulate Xiaochun in advance. After the Qing Emperor, Xiaochun was a thorn in many people's sides. If Xiaochun died, it would not be just the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, but the many holy masters of the heavenly starry ocean who would be grinning from ear to ear. Elder Bai's smile widened, his eyes filled with satisfaction. He was just waiting to kill Xiaochun when the time came. At the summit of the desolate mountain, heavy clouds churned in the sky for a kilometer around Xiaochun. Thunder rumbled in the clouds. Although one could hear it, one could not see it. All the light within 1,000 meters seemed to have gathered on a single person. That was a white figure. His figure did not look very majestic. His delicate face did not give off a very tyrannical feeling. However, when he stood at the summit, he was very eye-catching. Even without doing anything, he could instantly attract everyone's attention. Be it the tall mountain under one's feet, the clouds in the sky, or the rumbling thunder, everything would vanish. When you step into this 1,000-year area, everything will disappear. All you will see is this faintly discernible white figure, who who has gathered all the light in this world. Xiaochen watched all this with satisfaction. His lips curled up in a satisfied smile. After 3 days of Lan Qiaofeng's guidance, Xiaochen finally understood what going from momentum to subtlety was. Simply put, going from momentum to subtlety was hiding the originally vast aura in all the unknown details of the entire space. Unfortunately, 3 days was too short. Xiaochen could not comprehend much, and could not achieve Lan Qiaofeng's silent drizzle. Silent and in harmony with the sky. There were no openings, no weakness to exploit. If Xiaochen improved further, he could even hide the thunder and make the heavy clouds vanish. With a thought, the area within 1 kilometer became his domain. Lightning moved as Xiaochen willed. The saber intent filling the air was everywhere. However, this was fine. Xiaochen was already very satisfied with his improvement in 3 days. Suddenly, Xiaochen narrowed his eyes and a murderous intent surged out. He moved 1 kilometer in 1 step and swung his saber. He discovered that with this step, the thunderclouds in the sky silently moved 1 kilometer. However, it was still centered around Xiaochen. It was like nothing had changed. The only thing that changed was the hidden saber intent. When Xiaochen swung his saber, all the rocks, withered grass, and tree branches within 1 kilometer burst out with a startling saber intent. The saber intent filling the air was everywhere, making one feel that there was nowhere to hide within 1 kilometer. It was like everything was his enemy, the entire world rejecting him. All this was because Xiaochen drew his saber. By the time Xiaochen sheathed his saber, the saber intent filling the air instantly vanished, turning into nothing. The earlier scene was like an illusion, never having happened. Not bad. You have already reached the initial step of going from power to subtlety. The area within 1 kilometer is your world. No matter what kind of domain, be it the saber domain, the sword domain, the water domain, or the fire domain, the focus is on the last domain. Xiaochen scattered his saber domain, and the thunderclouds vanished. Then he said humbly, "It is still not enough. Compared to Senior, I am far from it." Lan Qiaofeng smiled and said, "At least you are aware of your limitations. However, I have nothing else to teach you. You have already grasped the basics. You just need to slowly comprehend it." "Senior, I have a question." "Speak," Lan Qiaofeng said straightforwardly. After some thought, Xiaochen said, "I want to know how to fight with an opponent of the same domain and find their weakness. For example, how should I break Senior's superior water saber domain?" When Lan Qiaofeng heard that, he laughed loudly. "What a brat! You are really bold, daring to ask anything. Have you heard of the saying, teaching the disciple to starve to death? Right now you are not trying to starve me to death. You are clearly trying to force me to death." Xiaochen smiled and did not say anything. Now he more or less understood Lan Qiaofeng's temper. This old man had a strange temper, but he was definitely not the kind of person who haggled over minor matters. Indeed, after Lan Qiaofeng finished laughing, he said, "Don't overthink. There is no trick to this. You feel that my superior water saber domain is not easy to deal with, but I also feel that your thunder saber domain is not easy to deal with. The one who goes further and comprehends it more thoroughly will have the advantage in battle. Are you satisfied with my answer?" Xiaochen thought about it for a while before commenting, "Not really. However, one day, I will find the weakness of your domain. There is no such thing as nothing without a weakness." Lan Qiaofeng glared at Xiaochen and said, "You really dare to brag. In the entire Kunlun realm, even the Prime, the Thunder King, would not dare to say something like that." Xiaochen smiled faintly, and did not refute Lan Qiaofeng's words. The reason he said this was related to his flawless saber Dao. The flawless Dao never believed that there was anything truly perfect and flawless in the world. If Xiaochen did not even have this bit of skepticism, then his Dao would instantly crumble. His perseverance as a bladesman would crumble, and he would lose his heart. Whoosh! The sound of wind came from the foot of the mountain. That was the sound of someone rushing over at an extremely fast speed, giving off sonic booms. Xiaochen and Lan Qiaofeng did not turn their heads back. They each sensed for a while and knew that Lan Xiaobai had arrived. "Xiaobai is here. Your battle with that old man should be starting soon. The 5 Poison sect is famous for its poison attacks. However, at Emperor Wu's level, he has cultivated the golden body. There are very few poisons in the world that can threaten Emperor Wu. However, you do not have the golden body yet. So, you have to end this battle quickly. It would be best if you finish off your opponent within 1 hour. Lan Xiaofeng was still very concerned about Xiaochen. He gave Xiaochen a detailed explanation of the upcoming battle, and some things that he needed to take note of. As long as you end the battle within 1 hour, even if you are poisoned, it will not affect the battle. Xiaochen memorized everything. Then he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks, senior." Lan Xiaofeng waved his hand, and his figure slowly vanished. I will not see Xiaobai. This fellow is very crafty now. Previously, he mocked me even more than Tianqi did. Right after Lan Xiaofeng left, Lan Xiaobai landed with the wind. He asked doubtfully, "Where's master? I seem to have seen him earlier." Xiaochen smiled and said, "I have something to do, so I left first. Have you chosen the time?" "I have. It is on the 28th of this month." Xiaochen calculated. Today was the 13th. That was to say, the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony would officially start half a month later. For the re-establishment ceremony, I referenced the re-establishment ceremonies of some ancient sections. Then, I made some changes based on the situation in Heaven Dragon City. As I said previously, the main event is to pay respects to the ancestors. Lan Xiaobai continued, when Heaven Dragon City was first constructed, Emochin used the bodies of those Dragon's Gate's war venerates to build a blue dragon tomb in the north of the city. That is where we will pay respects to the ancestors. Xiaochen nodded, having no objections. Even after these Dragon's Gate's war venerates died and turned into puppets, they still guarded the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove until they died. Xiaochen continued to guard the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, not resting until death. He, Xiaochen, did 3 kowtows and 9 kowtows. Perhaps not all of these ancestors were of the Dragon's Gate's Xiao clan's direct line of descent. However, they were loyal and could not be erased. Come then. Come with me to meet that old man from the 5 Poison sect. We have to announce the re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate to the world. Chapter 1270. Xiaochen showed a calm expression as he spoke casually. There was no nervousness in his tone at all. No one could tell that Xiaochen was a consummation blue-robed emperor challenging a bona fide Emperor Wu. It was like the person he wanted to kill was just a nobody, a dancing clown. Lan Xiaobai sighed in his heart. News of this battle had spread like wildfire, startling the entire heavenly starry ocean. However, the main character of this matter was actually this calm. Xiaochen wondered what the 5 Poison sect's senior Bai would think when he learned that Xiaochen wanted to sacrifice an emperor to his saber. The location of the decisive battle was set at the Blue Dragon Plaza. This was the only place in the entire Heaven Dragon City that had a dueling ground for Emperor Wu. As long as there was space for people to stand near the plaza, it was already occupied. Looking down from the sky, the place was densely packed with people, looking like ants. The emperor-level dueling ground with formations was empty. No one had gone up yet. Senior Bai was surrounded by a group of Emperor Wu's old friends. He was not in a rush to go up. Due to his status, if Xiaochen did not come, he absolutely would not go up first. He would just stand there and wait like a fool. Whoosh! Suddenly, an intense commotion rang out in the plaza, shaking the entire place. Old Bai and the others shifted their gazes and looked at the entrance. Indeed, it was Xiaochen, accompanied by Lan Xiaobai, walking in slowly. Senior Bai, we will congratulate you in killing the Blue Dragon King with your own hands. Use this head to show the might of our heavenly starry ocean's Emperor Wu. That's right. For the past few centuries, us old fellows have rarely made a move in public. Senior Bai, don't let us down. Senior Bai smiled sinisterly. Don't worry. He will definitely die today. No one will be able to save him. Senior Bai tore space and landed on the arena. Then he looked at the strolling Xiaochen and shouted coldly, Blue Dragon King, come up and receive your death. Elder Bai of the 5 Poison sect shouted coldly, causing the clamor in the plaza to die down. Xiaochen looked up and paused for a second. He ignored the conversation with Lan Xiaobai and walked toward the arena unhurriedly. Old Bai was stunned, and his eyes burned with anger. Xiaoqun had actually ignored him. Blue Dragon King, come and receive your death. Master Bai shouted again. This time, he used the power of his heaven rank law. His voice was so loud that the entire Blue Dragon Square began to shake. The towering stone pillars and statues began to sway with this roar. Some of the weaker cultivators even felt their chi and blood surging, unable to hold back their words. There were even some who couldn't withstand the shout and directly coughed up blood. Emperor-level powerhouses are indeed unfathomable. If their strength were any lower, their voices would be enough to kill. This is really horrifying. I heard that this 5 poison sects by Feng is Emperor Wu of the first heaven of still water. It has been several hundred years since Emperor Wu made a move in the heavenly starry ocean. This time Xiaoqun is probably done for. Discussions broke out everywhere in the plaza. The 5 poison sects by Feng's roar successfully showed everyone Emperor Wu's unfathomable strength. However, Xiaoqun remained indifferent. He raised his head and glanced at Bai Feng before continuing to walk forward unhurriedly. The tense atmosphere immediately turned somewhat strange. One was furious, and the other was unhurried, completely ignoring the other party's challenge. Haha, interesting. This Blue Dragon King is actually ignoring him. This is probably the first time someone has given the bona fide Emperor Wu the cold shoulder. What exactly is this Blue Dragon King planning? I heard that this time, the Blue Dragon King's head can be exchanged for a rank 8 sect. Isn't the 5 poison sects elder by a little too excited? If it were me before Emperor Wu, this roar would scare me out of my wits. To think that Xiaoqun did not react at all. As Emperor Wu, Bai Feng heard all these chatter very clearly. Every word they said made him feel extremely humiliated. As a martial emperor, when had he ever been ignored like this? Blue Dragon King, come and receive your death. Rage burned in Bai Feng's heart. This time he roared, infusing his primordial energy into his voice. He was going all out. There was a thunderous, ear-splitting sound. The stone on the stone pillars and statues in the plaza all fell off. Cracks appeared on the ground. Several people's eardrums ruptured on the spot, causing intense pain. With such might from the shock waves, one could easily imagine how much pressure Xiaoqun, who bore the brunt of it, endured. However, even so, Xiaoqun remained calm and collected. He did not get angry at all, nor did he show any grave expression. After glancing at Elder Bai, Xiaoqun turned his head back and said goodbye to Lan Xiaobai. Then he headed for the arena alone unhurriedly. Spatial formations from the Dragon's Gate's secret cannon covered the ground of the arena in the Blue Dragon Plaza, completely changing the spatial laws there. It was somewhat similar to the arena in the Four Seas Hero Gathering in Bright Moon City. However, it was of a higher level, able to endure a startling battle on the level of Emperor Wu. Up in the arena, Bai Feng's rage had already reached an unbearable level when Xiaoqun ignored his challenge 3 times. Bai Feng only had one thought in his mind. The instant Xiaoqun stepped into the arena, he would deal a fatal blow to show Xiaoqun the price of ignoring him. No one had ever dared to ignore him like this before. Xiaoqun walked over step by step and finally climbed onto the arena. After performing a cupped fist salute, he looked at Bai Feng. In his heart, Bai Feng was already a dead man. Let's see how confident you are. However, you ignored me again and again. Die. Bai Feng did not even bother exchanging any pleasantries with Xiaoqun. After Xiaoqun finished bowing, he roared ferociously and charged over. Venomous Dragon Claw. Bai Feng's figure flashed, and he turned into a venomous dragon. Black clouds filled the sky, immediately covering the sun. Then he swung his claw. It was like a huge, ancient, evil dragon swung its claw down from the clouds. The huge dragon claw nearly covered half the arena. The dragon claw was pitch black. Not only was it horrifying, but it also contained poison. The moment this move was executed, it immediately incited startled cries. He truly lived up to his reputation as Emperor Wu. An inferior grade profound martial technique did not require any time to store up power. It could be executed as one wished, displaying a perfect and flawless state. Many people in the Blue Dragon Plaza knew an inferior grade profound martial technique similar to the venomous dragon claw. However, no one could execute it as easily as Bai Feng did. and maintain a perfect state. Baifeng perfectly merged the speed of his execution and the mysteries of his martial technique. However, the expressions of the cultivators who came with Baifeng changed slightly. They did not show much joy. This is not good. This Baifeng lost his rationality due to his rage. Didn't he say that he would drag this out? Indeed. Clashing head-on like this is exactly what Xiaochen wants. He has never suffered when clashing head-on with the sharp spirit finger. That's not right. Baifeng is Emperor Wu, after all. His mental state will not fall into disorder so easily. He must be doing this on purpose. Remember that night, when he said that Emperor Forsaken's Will clone came into contact with him. An old man from the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace suddenly recalled this matter. The expressions of Emperor Wu immediately changed. He smiled and said, "The older the ginger, the spicier." As Xiaochen looked at Baifeng, who turned into a venomous dragon and tore space with one claw, his eyes flickered as he pondered. Emperor Wu's mental state cannot be broken so easily. This fellow attacked in rage. He might be purposely giving me an opportunity to make a move. I might as well beat him at his own game and see how he deals with it. Feeling confident, Xiaochen stepped forward and gathered 4 electric whirlpools at his chest. Using half of his energy, Xiaochen executed the sharp spirit finger. The sharp spirit finger was the strongest secret technique in the heavenly starry ocean. The moment it was executed, it shattered the dragon claw without losing any momentum. The lightning-quick finger continued forward, aiming for the vital point of Baifeng's heart of an emperor. Dang! However, to Xiaochen's surprise, the indestructible, unbreakable sharp spirit finger actually got blocked. The rebound of the force knocked Xiaochen back. Caught off guard, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Baifeng laughed loudly. "Trying to play with me? You are still too inexperienced. This is just a small trick. I sold you an opening, and you actually took it for real." Only now did Xiaochen clearly see that the other party's heart of an emperor had a breastplate covered in divine markings stuck to the other party's heart of an emperor. This heart was not the heart of a heart, but the heart of an emperor. The divine markings on the breastplate were extremely familiar to Xiaochen. He raised his eyebrows and said softly, "This is the deity race's secret treasure, the breastplate. Only the deity race's Emperor Wu has it." Baifeng laughed loudly and said, "It is too late for you to know now. The sharp spirit finger is useless against me. Let's see what other trump cards you have to fight with me. Blue Dragon King, it would be impolite for me to refuse your head. I will accept it." How despicable! To deal with a consummation blue-robed emperor. The great Emperor Wu actually sought out the deity race to borrow the heavenly heart mirror. This was truly flabbergasting. If Xiaochen were fighting with someone of the same cultivation, using a secret treasure was understandable. However, when facing a consummation blue-robed emperor, doing so was too degrading. Everyone in the plaza felt nervous for Xiaochen. What was he going to do now? Although Baifeng's actions were shameless, he did not break the rules. There had never been any rules in a battle to the death. Xiaochen wiped off the blood at the corner of his lips and glanced indifferently at Baifeng. "Who told you that my sharp spirit finger only has this much might?" "What?" Without giving Baifeng any time to feel shocked, 9 electric whirlpools flickered at Xiaochen's chest. Light flashed, and the 9 electric whirlpools gathered at Xiaochen's fingertip at the same time. The sky immediately turned dark, so dark that one could not see their own fingers. In the entire Blue Dragon Plaza, only the electric light at Xiaochen's fingertip flickered. This time, Xiaochen used the sharp spirit finger at full power, breaking through 3 of Baifeng's defenses before landing on the deity race's heavenly heart mirror. Crack! Everyone heard it clearly. The deity race Emperor Wu's personal heavenly heart mirror suddenly shattered. The divine patterns scattered and turned into beams of 7-colored spiritual light scattering like meteors in the dark night. How can it be like this? How can his sharp spirit finger be so strong? Such a scene startled Emperor Wu, who accompanied Baifeng, and they all stood up at the same time. Xiaochen frowned slightly. Even with the sharp spirit finger at full power, it only managed to shatter the heavenly heart mirror. This was not the result that Xiaochen wanted. It was rare for Baifeng to lower his guard and think that victory was assured. giving Xiao Chen such a great opportunity. It was not worth it to settle things like this. Chapter 1271. The deity race's heart-protecting mirror was indeed quite famous. The most important thing should be those ancient divine scripts. Without the divine scripts, the heavenly heart mirror's defense would not be so ridiculously strong. However, now was not the time to consider this. The most important thing was to maximize the results of this battle. Whoosh! Xiao Chen shattered the heavenly heart mirror with one finger. Then he drew his lunar shadow saber at the same time. A saber light shot out like a waterfall, chopping towards Bai Feng's head. Given the other party's golden Emperor Wu body, chopping off Bai Feng's head would not allow him to survive. If Xiao Chen could do that, it would not be a loss to waste the sharp spirit finger at full power. Bai Feng was already frightened out of his wits by Xiao Chen's sharp spirit finger at full power. When he saw Xiao Chen's waterfall-like saber strike, he was frightened out of his wits and quickly moved back. However, he had already comprehended a saber domain. Even if he did not bring out his saber domain, he would not be able to escape. Even without using his saber domain, even a casual saber strike of Xiao Chen's contained great might and extraordinary power. Xiao Chen's aura and speed both improved to varying degrees, far beyond what a regular bladesman could compare to. Blood spurted out. The saber light moved astonishingly fast, chopping off half of Bai Feng's neck. However, it did not manage to chop off his entire head. To Bai Feng, who possessed the first Heaven Emperor Wu body, this minor injury was not fatal. Bai Feng drove his primordial energy and quickly eliminated the remnant saber intent in his wound, allowing his flesh to heal quickly. Whoosh! One finger, one saber. Xiao Chen forced Bai Feng back. There was a distance of 10,000 meters. 10,000 meters was 5 kilometers. However, to Emperor Wu, this distance was equivalent to several hundred meters for regular cultivators, not particularly far. However, this was not the important point. The important point was that Xiao Chen, a consummation blue-robed emperor, managed to force back the bona fide Emperor Wu Bai Feng. In this battle with a martial emperor, the one who held the overwhelming advantage was not Bai Feng but the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen, a genius who was only a consummation blue-robed emperor. Whoosh! A thunderous commotion broke out at the scene. Tens of thousands of people stood up to witness this unbelievable miracle. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and revealed a disappointed expression. His saber was not fast enough. Bai Feng held the wound on his neck. His complexion was pale as he said weakly, "Blue Dragon King, I admit defeat in this match. Can you let me live?" Xiao Chen saw the flicker in the other party's eyes. He knew that the other party was stalling for time, and not sincerely admitting defeat. He still harbored ulterior motives and wanted to kill him. The other party was stalling for time, which was exactly what he wanted. He unleashed the telepathic finger at full power. This drained his mental energy, primordial energy, heavenly laws and vital qi. Bai Feng fancied himself clever, and wanted to drag things out until his injuries recovered. Xiao Chen was happy to play along with him. "Give you a chance? Why didn't you give me a chance? That day, when I went berserk, you shouted about slaying the devil. Did you ever think about how I felt?" Xiao Chen mercilessly rejected the other party's request. Then, he looked coldly at the other party, searching for an opportunity to kill him in one move. "Damn it. If you had not tricked me, causing me to misjudge the might of your telepathic finger, how could you be so arrogant now?" Xiao Chen retorted calmly. "Then it is my fault? Your words are really shameless. If you are really that capable, why did you go to the deity race to borrow the heavenly heart mirror?" Bai Feng smiled and retorted, "Do you really think that I borrowed the heavenly heart mirror? Haha. Xiao Chen, even if you kill me today, only death awaits you in the future. You have no idea how many people want to kill you and how strong they are. Your future is dark. Furthermore," Bai Feng paused, and a murderous intent surged out of his eyes again. He lowered his right hand, which was covering his wound, and revealed his perfectly intact neck. His injuries had already recovered completely. Furthermore, it is still hard to say who will be the victor. Bai Feng laughed loudly. Then he turned into a venomous dragon and charged over again. This time, Bai Feng tore space, wanting to charge over and catch Xiaochun off guard. However, when Bai Feng arrived within 1 kilometer of Xiaochun, he suddenly felt a formless force forcing him out of that space. It was like the world that Xiaochun was in did not welcome him at all. When he reappeared, he even felt somewhat confused. Whoosh! Another saber light like a waterfall flew over. Everywhere the saber light passed, it was like a waterfall was dancing in the air, shocking everyone. This time, Bai Feng could not dodge. The saber light cut his neck again, and blood spurted out like a fountain. Bai Feng landed on the ground and staggered. He did his best to cover his wound with both hands, but blood still flowed out continuously from his fingertips. No matter what he did, he could not stop it. Saber. 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 Bai Feng found it incredibly difficult to say a single word. He could not say the word domain no matter what. It was indeed a saber domain. However, Xiaochun did not activate it. He only used the aura of the saber domain to make Bai Feng appear within 1 kilometer of him. This was not the time to reveal the trump card of the saber domain yet. The first Heaven Emperor, Wu, had not grasped the state of space yet. He had only scratched the surface and could tear space and teleport short distances. In terms of cultivating the saber domain, when facing Xiaochun, who had already advanced from aura to subtlety, Bai Feng charging over was no different from sending himself to death. Pussy eye. A saber light exploded out of Bai Feng's neck, and his head flew off. Only a headless body remained, falling on the dueling ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. The thoughts of the head flying in the air had not been completely severed yet. Scenes flickered continuously in his eyes. The still calm Xiaochun, the cultivators covering their mouths in disbelief, and the horrified expression on Emperor Wu's face, who had come with Bai Feng, were all captured in Xiaochun's eyes. However, Bai Feng no longer had the ability to think. After his head fell to the ground and rolled around, he closed his eyes. If he was given another chance, he would definitely scram the moment Xiaochun told him to scram for 3,000 taels of silver. He would not say another word. However, there were no ifs in the world, and there was no medicine for regret. From the moment Bai Feng prepared to eliminate Xiaochun, his fate was already sealed. The blood on the tip of the saber had yet to dry, dripping to the ground. Xiaochun stared at the blood on the saber and touched it. After thinking for a while, he said softly, "Aside from the stronger energy contained in Emperor Wu's blood, there is actually no difference." Strictly speaking, this was the first Emperor Wu that Xiaochun had killed head-on. However, Xiaochun was different from the cultivators in the spectator stands, who felt like they were in a dream, finding it inconceivable. Xiaochun's heart was as cold as water. He did not feel anything at all. This was because Xiaochun had never treated this Bai Feng as an equal. The stronger Xiaochun was, the higher his horizons were, and the further he was from this world. After wiping off the blood on the saber, Xiaochun sat cross-legged at the side and calmly absorbed Bai Feng's life essence. Only now did the cultivators who felt like they were in a dream confirm that what they saw was not an illusion. Xiaochun had truly killed an Emperor Wu, creating a miracle that no one had done in the past few centuries. The few Emperor Wus who had come with Bai Feng remained silent for a long time before sighing. In the past, there were some people who were said to be unrivaled as long as Emperor Wu did not show up. Even Emperor Wu was not a match for him. I really don't know how to describe him. After Emperor Wu, the Blue Dragon King is unquestionably the strongest. It will be even harder to kill him in the future. This head will not be easy to obtain. Just as everyone was still immersed in the aftermath of Xiaochun killing Bai Feng, Xiaochun, who had finished absorbing the life essence, suddenly opened his eyes and announced an even more shocking piece of news. Today, Xiaochun, as the descendant of the Qing Emperor, announces that the Dragon's Gate will be re-established on the 28th of this month. We welcome all the heroes of the world to attend the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Re-establishing the Dragon's Gate? The moment Xiaochun said this, all the clamor came to a stop. The few Emperor Wus from the divine dragon palaces of the Four Seas, the Heavenly Province Academy, and the ancient noble clans were stunned at first. Then, they became agitated and enraged. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few figures flashed and appeared in the arena. Then they looked at Xiaochun with murderous intent. Blue Dragon King, are you muddle-headed? Do you know what you just said? Re-establishing the Dragon's Gate? Who gave you such courage? You are just a consummation blue-robed emperor, and you think you are worthy of re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The seated Xiaochen did not get angry or shocked. He sheathed his lunar shadow saber and slowly stood up. Why can't I re-establish the Dragon's Gate? I have the Blue Dragon Medallion, and I have the Xiao clan's bloodline. I am the legitimate Blue Dragon King. Isn't it logical for me to re-establish the Dragon's Gate? You make it sound so easy. What do you mean by logical? You are going against the heavens. The Dragon's Gate has already been destroyed for 10,000 years. It should not have appeared in history. Could it be that you want to be the second Qing Emperor? The Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's Emperor Wu, who had the most direct connection to the Heaven Dragon City, roared uncontrollably. His killing qi became terrifyingly dense. The Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's reputation in the Western Sea had already been surpassed by the Heaven Dragon City. If the Dragon's Gate was re-established, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace would definitely become a second-rate faction. No matter what, they could not let Xiaochen re-establish the Dragon's Gate. The old men of the other Holy Lands were worried that Xiaochen would become the second Qing Emperor. Back then, the Qing Emperor was extremely tyrannical, suppressing the many factions of the heavenly starry ocean to the point where they could not even raise their heads. How could they let that kind of scene repeat itself? They absolutely could not let the Dragon's Gate be re-established. The words Dragon's Gate were taboo to all the factions. Some of these factions even participated in the encirclement and suppression of the Dragon's Gate 10,000 years ago. They had a grudge against the destruction of the Dragon's Gate. Xiaochen looked at these people one by one. Even when facing these 7 Emperor Wu's questioning and pressure from their auras, his heart did not fluctuate, remaining as calm as still water. Take back what you said. It is too late to change your mind now. That's right. Quickly take back what you said. Otherwise, don't blame us for shedding all pretense of cordiality. Brat, don't go overboard. Some tacit understanding is an agreement between the major characters. However, once you cross the line, those agreements will no longer be valid. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you killed by phone. Remember, you have not advanced to Martial Emperor yet. The atmosphere was tense, ready to devolve into a chaotic battle at any moment. Several cultivators in the Blue Dragon Plaza quietly retreated, wanting to distance themselves from the impending storm. Chapter 1272. Today's matter was simply too much of a test of one's heart's endurance. First, Xiaochen dreamily killed one Emperor Wu. Following that, he announced a piece of shocking news that could shake the entire Kunlun realm. Xiaochen said indifferently, "How can I take back what I said? Are the few of you planning to work together to kill me? However, even if you kill me, I will not take back what I said." Xiaochen's white robes fluttered as he held his saber. His clear eyes were as bright as stars and gems. As he stood on the arena, he withstood the auras of 7 Emperor Wus. However, he did not seem flustered at all. Xiaochen's elegant demeanor made several people who had already left the plaza unwilling to shift their gazes away. A fervent light appeared in someone's eyes as he muttered to himself, "If I can have even a tenth of the Blue Dragon King's demeanor in this life, it will be worth it." Calm, persistent, calm, and tyrannical. If not for the mental barrier of advancing to Martial Emperor in 5 years, the Blue Dragon King's life would be perfect. Even if he fails to advance to Martial Emperor, the demeanor of the Blue Dragon King cannot be erased. I have never seen a young outstanding talent that can face 7 Emperor Wu so calmly. The appearance of a king made several people reluctant to leave. As they looked at Xiaochen, their gazes filled with worship. Dong, dong, dong. Footsteps resounded. It was Lan Xiaobai and the others. They arrived behind Xiaochen at the same time. At the crucial moment, they chose to stand behind him. Even though they were not strong enough now, their intentions were clear. "Are you going to resist to the end?" The red-clad old man from the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace said in a low, threatening voice. Xiaochen retorted indifferently. "What do you mean by resisting? I am purely trying to revive the sect of my ancestors. As a man of the Xiao clan, everything I do is normal." Seniors, there is no need to misunderstand. The Blue Dragon King re-established the Dragon's Gate not to rule the world. He is just fulfilling his responsibility to his ancestors. Lan Xiaobai tried to ease the atmosphere, so he explained. Is it your place to speak? The red-clad old man raged in his heart, but he could not find an outlet to vent his anger. When he saw Lan Xiaobai speak, he did not bother to distinguish right from wrong, so he clawed at Lan Xiaobai. The berserk dragon roared furiously. His clothes trembled violently, bringing with it a heaven-shaking aura. His claw slashed out, as if a true dragon had stretched out its dragon claw from the void. It was extremely terrifying. Xiao. A gentle breeze blew in the air. The red-clad old man had just taken a step when he discovered a scabbard pressed against his throat. The person who had attacked was naturally the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen. He had only casually raised his hand to silently break the old man's powerful attack. This caused him to feel stifled, not daring to make any moves. Xiaochen gently moved his wrist, and the lunar shadow saber spun around before he withdrew it. Only at this moment did the red-clothed old man's long hair, which had been blown up by the wind, fall down slightly. Fear flashed in the red-clad old man's heart. He looked at Xiaochen and quietly took a step back. For this fellow to defeat Bai Feng so easily, he definitely did not rely on luck. The other 6 Emperor Wus all had similar thoughts in their hearts. They all unconsciously took a step back as well. With this step back, the strong aura of these Emperor Wus immediately dwarfed Xiaochen's. The so-called air of a king did not depend on who shouted the most ferociously, or whose aura was the strongest. There was something called an aura field that would unknowingly make the opponent feel that they were a level lower than them. Where did this air come from? Naturally, it was because one was confident in one's heart and had real moves. Otherwise, with just a few words, an expert would expose one's pretense and trample on one's face. When the tens of thousands of people outside saw this scene, they suddenly understood why Xiaochen was so calm. This was because Xiaochen did not fear these 7 Emperor Wus at all. In their eyes, the aloof first Heaven Emperor Wu was nothing to Xiaochen from the very start. When an ant shouted at an elephant, how could the elephant lower its status and get angry at the ant? The Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony will be held on the 28th of this month. If the seniors are free, we will definitely give you the highest treatment. After the 7 Emperor Wus stepped back, Xiaochen said calmly with a cupped fist salute, not showing any arrogance on his face. When a person performed a cupped fist salute under certain circumstances, it meant that he was sending off the guest. Don't worry. At that time, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace will definitely arrive on time and give you a big gift, the red-clad old man said through gritted teeth. Then he flung his hand and left, his rage evident in his words. Although the Emperor Wus present were unwilling, they had to admit that they were no longer qualified to speak on equal terms with Xiaochen. As for being superior, there was no need to even think about it. One by one, they swung their hands and left. However, the expressions in their eyes did not disappear. Clearly, they would not let this matter rest. In a distant pavilion in the city, the 3 martial emperor elders of the Lunar Palace, Myriad Fiend Island, and the Yinyang Paradise entered deep thought when they saw this scene. The 3 of them were rather neutral. Originally, they just wanted to watch a duel that would shock the entire circle of Emperor Wu's people. Unexpectedly, the truly explosive thing was what Xiaochen said after the duel. Compared to the news of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment, the commotion caused by that duel was nothing. The air of a king is clear to see. At such a young age, he already has such an air. It is easier said than done to get the other Holy Lord to not fear him and believe his words. The Myriad Fiend Island's martial emperor Wu shook his head and sighed. Tigers were feared not because tigers ate people, but because tigers had the ability to do so. The Myriad Fiend Island's old man's words hit the nail on the head, exposing the logic of bandits in this world of power. One would not be killed because one wanted to dominate, but because one had the ability to do so. The world absolutely could not allow a second Qing emperor to appear. They absolutely could not let the Dragon's Gate be re-established. The re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate would make Xiaochen's luck even stronger. Most of the Holy Lord's people would not be willing to see such a scene. The Lunar Palace had always maintained a neutral policy. They would not express their stance on any matter at the first moment. At this moment, the female Emperor Wu, whom the lunar palace had placed in Heaven Dragon City, showed a rare change in her expression. Clearly, the news of Xiao Chen's re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate startled her, and she had not completely calmed down. When the Myriad Fiend Palace's old man heard this, he smiled faintly and said, "The Myriad Fiend Island is at the periphery of the heavenly starry ocean and rarely interferes with the internal affairs of the human race. Earlier, when the Blue Dragon King entered a state of berserking chi deviation, he did not rush to make a decision. I wonder if he can remain calm this time?" When Xiao Chen entered a state of berserking chi deviation, this was a rare opportunity to kill him. The value of Xiao Chen's head tested the hearts of many cultivators. However, in the end, the Myriad Fiend Island's old man remained unmoved, choosing to remain calm. However, this time, Xiao Chen's words made it even harder for the Lunar Palace to remain calm. The Myriad Fiend Island's ancient fiend smiled calmly and said, "There is no need for the Lunar Palace to worry about this. I am more curious about the Lunar Palace's attitude. 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor had a lot of stories with the Lunar Palace." The Myriad Fiend Island's ancient fiend laughed loudly and quickly left, preparing to send news of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment back to the Myriad Fiend Island. Humph! Rage flashed on the Lunar Palace's Emperor Wu's face as she left as well. Only the mature, charming woman from the Yin-Yang Paradise remained. As she looked at the distant Xiao Chun, her charming face lit up. Boundless grace truly moving. No wonder Susu nearly fell for him when she saw him. If he were still young, I would not have dared to look at him. How unfortunate. The Yin-Yang Paradise was famous for its dual cultivation. The female disciples did not have a good reputation, but no one knew about this. Such a sect had the inheritance of the ancient emotionless sect. While it looked unrestrained, one could not fall in love. Once one fell in love, it would damage the foundation of their cultivation technique, resulting in a backlash. After the three left, none of the Emperor Wus from the other holy lands of the Heaven Dragon Island remained. These martial emperors would definitely spread the news of Xiao Chen's re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate to their holy lands in the shortest time possible. After that, the news of the re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate would spread throughout the entire Kunlun realm in less than 3 days. This would result in a huge change. Up in the arena, Lan Xiaobai watched all the Emperor Wu's leave. He heaved a sigh of relief. However, when he thought about how many more Emperor Wus would arrive on the 28th, he could not help frowning heavily. Xiao Chen's expression did not change much. He took out a name list that he had prepared long ago and handed it to Lan Xiaobai. He said, "This is the list of honored guests. Brother Xiaobai, I'll have to trouble you to send them invitations." Lan Xiaobai casually opened the invitation, and his expression suddenly froze. When he saw the names on it, he was somewhat flabbergasted. "Xiao Chen, are these really the honored guests of Heaven Dragon City willing to come?" The Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony was not an ordinary ceremony. Coming was not just to congratulate Xiao Chen but also to express their attitude, to show their support. Right now, Xiao Chen's relationship with the various holy lands was not very good. Under such circumstances, very few could withstand the pressure and come. Hence Lan Xiaobai asked this. Xiao Chen replied with certainty. "It should not be a problem to send half. Several of the people here owe me favors. I believe that my judgment of people should not be too bad. All right, I'll go and make the arrangements." Lan Xiaobai revealed joy on his face. As long as half of the people on the name list could come, the pressure on Heaven Dragon City would decrease significantly. Xiao Chen turned his head and said to Mo Chen, "There is still half a month. I'll leave the arrangements for the re-establishment ceremony to you." Mo Chen nodded obediently and said, "Don't worry. Leave it to me. This is just a small matter." That was right. To Mo Chen, this was indeed just a small matter. The important thing in her heart was that she wanted to personally help Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen improved too quickly. Now, even when facing First Heaven Emperor Wu, he could achieve an overwhelming victory. As for Mo Chen, even if she had the Book of Heavenly Works and improved rapidly, she still could not compare to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen turned his head and looked at the many friends beside him. Yu Chenxi, Jinlin, and the others all showed worried expressions. He smiled and said, "Let's go. Do what you need to do. This is not too difficult." To Xiaochun, this was indeed not the most difficult hurdle. Compared to the great tribulation of wind and fire, this was far from it. If Xiaochun could not even clear this hurdle, then he could forget about his great tribulation of wind and fire. He might as well just scatter his cultivation and be an ordinary person. Chapter 1273. After returning to his own summit, Xiaochun continued to comprehend the saber domain. He kept feeling that this saber domain contained many mysteries. Even Senior Lan Chaofeng probably had not completely comprehended it yet. Many things were still vague to him. "Ao Jiao, don't you think that Senior Lan Chaofeng's understanding of the saber domain is not that incredible?" Senior Lan said that the saber domain was about the word domain. That was the right direction. However, Xiaochun felt that aside from the domain, the saber was equally important, perhaps even more so. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not dare to doubt their predecessors. However, Xiaochun was different. He had never been someone who only followed the path of others. Ao Jiao had followed the Thunder King Sangmu. Sangmu could even comprehend the innate thunder crystal. Naturally, he comprehended the sword domain. Hence, Ao Jiao had some understanding of this. Actually, Xiaochun, think about it. Look at the entire Kunlun realm. Consider the entire Kunlun realm, the vast oceanic world, the Kunlun continent, the ancient races living on the other planets, and so on. Adding everything together, how many Emperor Wu do you think there are? Xiaochun had not thought about this problem in detail. It was not easy to become an Emperor Wu. However, once one became an Emperor Wu, they would be able to live for at least 2,000 years. How long was 2,000 years? During this time, many Emperor Wu would be born. There would also be some greater heavenly Emperor Wu and sovereign martial emperors who lived even longer. It would not be strange for them to live for 5,000 years. Adding all this up, the Kunlun realm should have more Emperor Wu than Xiaochun imagined. After all, there were just the 5 major races of the Kunlun continent. Aside from the corpse race and the ghost race, the other 3 races had populations in the tens of billions. However, no matter how many there were, they would not be that many. The threshold of the Great Tribulation of wind and fire was still there. Xiaochun estimated the number of Emperor Wus in the Kunlun realm. Including those old monsters who had lived for thousands of years, there would not be more than 3,000. This was the highest estimate. Perhaps even fewer, less than 2,000, or a little more than 1,000. Of course, all of these were just guesses. Xiaochun would only know the real answer when he became Emperor Wu. There were tens of billions of people, and Emperor Wu only had 3,000. With such a comparison, one could see why Emperor Wu had always been so high and mighty. Ao Jiao continued. "Let's go with the maximum that you mentioned. Of the 3,000 martial emperors, how many can comprehend a domain?" Xiaochun frowned and replied, "I'm afraid there are only about 100 people." After saying that, Xiaochun came to a sudden realization. How could such a small group of people possibly have such a thorough understanding of the various domains? Perhaps all his doubts could only be answered after he left the land of exile. Right now, although Xiaochun had not advanced to martial emperor, and had not reached the level of a peak expert like the Haotian Prime or the Flame Rock Sovereign, he was still a martial emperor. However, this was the first time he felt the restrictions of the Kunlun realm on him. He felt helpless, hating the heavens for being too low. As Xiaochun comprehended at the summit, a storm brewed. In the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, the Western Sea Dragon King, who was a sovereign martial emperor, was the first to receive news of Xiaochun's intention to re-establish the Dragon's Gate before all the Holy Land's masters. Re-establishing the Dragon's Gate in my Western Sea? Where am I? My wild ambitions are finally exposed. Rumble. Waves surged for 50 kilometers around the Western Divine Dragon Palace, and tsunamis surged. A red dragon image could be vaguely seen in the sky, roaring furiously. The Dragon King is angry. When all the affiliated islands of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace saw this mysterious phenomenon, they all revealed horrified expressions. The Western Sea Dragon King had retired for many years already. All the affairs of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, big or small, were managed by the 3 Vice Palace Masters. Ordinary people had not seen the Western Sea Dragon King for many years already. In the most extravagant palace of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang sat on the throne in the middle with a scarily sullen expression. In the palace, the 3 Vice Palace Masters and 10 odd Martial Emperor Elders all sat upright and still, not daring to breathe too loudly. In Ao Lang's memory, the old Dragon King rarely got angry. This time, he was truly angry. In the vast palace, an old man lowered his body and said something in a soft voice. This person was the old man that Xiaochen forced back that day. The hidden pawn that the Western Sea Dragon King planted in Heaven Dragon City. This old man had the family name Zhong. At this moment he lowered his head, not daring to look at the Western Sea Dragon King. Continue. What else did he say? That inexperienced brat. With just a little bit of success, he soared to the sky. Ao Lang continued with a sullen expression. Old Zhong thought for a while before continuing. That brat said that he would welcome the Dragon King and many other holy lords to watch the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, and that he would give you the highest treatment. Humph. Ao Lang smacked the armrest heavily, unable to suppress his rage. He stood up and said, "What the highest treatment? I'll go and meet this brat. Let's see what kind of treatment he will give me." Normally, Ao Lang was not in the Divine Dragon Palace. He spent his time adventuring in the starry heavens, seeking breakthroughs. This time he received an urgent request from the 3 Vice Palace Masters, so he rushed back reluctantly. Originally he thought that it was nothing major. Unexpectedly, not only did the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace get overtaken by a Heaven Dragon City, but a youth even beat up one of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's Martial Emperor Elders silly. The more ridiculous thing was yet to come. This inexperienced brat actually dared to say that he wanted to re-establish the Dragon's Gate. This was simply infuriating. The 3 greater Heavenly Emperor Wu's Vice Palace Masters quickly stood up. At the same time they advised, "Big brother, you can't do that. You can't do that." The few of them knew that this big brother of theirs was famous for his fiery temper. When he did things, he rarely considered the consequences. Indeed, when the 3 Vice Palace Masters heard that Xiaochen wanted to re-establish the Dragon's Gate, they immediately had an impulse to charge over personally. How could that do? If it were that simple, the various holy lords would not have been helpless against Xiaochen until now. One should not forget that the one behind Xiaochen was the Thunder King. Aside from the Thunder King, there was also the Haotian Prime. If the Western Sea Dragon King went over, he probably would not be able to teach Xiaochen a lesson. Instead, the Thunder King would teach him a lesson. The 3 Vice Palace Masters stated the pros and cons, trying to dissuade the rash Western Sea Dragon King. Ao Lang waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I know how horrifying the Thunder King is. I just want to see what kind of person the descendant of the famous Qing Emperor is." The moment Ao Lang said that, the 3 Vice Palace Masters heaved a sigh of relief. This made sense. After all, Ao Lang was an overlord-class character. No matter how angry he was, he would not act rashly. "The 3 of you, split up and go to the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace, the Northern Sea Divine Dragon Palace, and the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. This time, not only do I want to gather all of Neptune's old subordinates, but also the various holy lands. I want to suppress them with power." When the others heard that, their expressions changed slightly. "Big brother, that is not good, right?" After the various holy lands receive the news, I believe that they will not be able to hold themselves back. However, no matter who it is, they will not be willing to take the lead. After all, the bird that sticks out gets shot. If the Thunder King comes to settle scores after this, we will be the first to suffer. A gleam flashed in Ao Lang's eyes. He said, "How can I not understand such a simple principle? However, now that things have reached this point, do you think I have any other choice? If this fellow were not in the Western Sea, I would not be taking the lead." Cut the crap. Just do as I say and do it quickly. After the various factions of Heavenly Star Island arranged for Emperor Wu to return, the many immortal Holy Lands and ancient noble clans received news of Xiaochen wanting to re-establish the Dragon's Gate within one day. The upper echelons of the Lunar Palace, the Zodiac Hall, the Heavenly Province Academy, the Yinyang Paradise, the Myriad Fiend Island, and the Five Poisons sect gathered together with grave expressions. The upper echelons of the Zodiac Hall and Heavenly Province Academy, who already had enmity with Xiaochen, were enraged. Back then, the prestige of the Dragon's Gate was so great that every Holy Land had records of it. Regardless of which Holy Land it was, no one was willing to see the Dragon's Gate reappear. What really worried people was the fear that Xiaochen would become the second Qing Emperor. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Qing Emperor had said, Xiaochen will become the second Qing Emperor. Then, the immortal Holy Land, the Minor Thunder Temple, was destroyed in an instant, and all of its inheritances were severed. None of the Holy Lands were willing to see such a tragedy happen to them. However, the upper echelons of the various Holy Lands did not have a good idea as to how to stop Xiaochen. All of them felt a headache. One day later, the news of the Blue Dragon King wanting to re-establish the Dragon's Gate spread throughout the entire heavenly starry ocean, inciting many cultivators to discuss it. Anyone with some common sense would know what kind of risk this would entail, and how furious the upper echelons of the Holy Lands would be. Along with this news came another rumor. The Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen, personally killed a martial emperor elder of the Five Poison sect before tens of thousands of cultivators. After the Four Seas hero gathering, Xiaochen, who had fallen silent in the heavenly starry ocean, became the focus of everyone's discussion once again. When the outstanding talents who were waiting for Xiaochen to become a meteor heard this news, they all turned ashen and dispirited. Before advancing to martial emperor, Xiaochen could already kill a bona fide Emperor Wu. Even if he became a meteor, Xiaochen would definitely be the most resplendent meteor in the history of the entire Kunlun realm. 2 days later, the news spread throughout the entire oceanic world. The major factions of the Black Sea, the Human Demon Sea, the Dragon Grave Sea, the Storm Sea, and the Ice Sea all heard of it. When the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, Yu Bingyun, who was searching for the 10,000-year-old ice lotus in the Ice Sea, heard this news, she was stunned. He is too rash. How can he decide to re-establish the Dragon's Gate at this time? Without hesitation, Yu Bingyun immediately put down what she was doing and rushed to the Lunar Palace. All she wanted was to return quickly and see if she could influence the Lunar Palace's attitude. Given her position as the next palace master of the Lunar Palace, she should be able to put in some words. If the re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate failed, Xiaochen's luck would be greatly affected. Yu Bingyun could not help but worry. 3 days later, the news spread to the Kunlun continent. All the peak factions of the 5 domains were set abuzz. Compared to the factions of the heavenly starry ocean, these Kunlun continent factions were much more at ease. After all, Heaven Dragon City was simply too far away. The only exception was the land of the human race's 3 holy masters. The Phoenix's Passion Palace, the White Emperor City, and the Divine Martial Gate. The 3 holy lords gathered together once again. The reason for this was very interesting. With just one sentence, Xiaochen stirred up the entire Kunlun realm, shocking the world. Since ancient times, probably only Xiaochen could do this. A huge storm slowly brewed. No one knew how big of a commotion it would cause on the day of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Chapter 1274. As for the main character of this incident, the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen, he was not as anxious or nervous as others imagined. He even looked rather relaxed. Dark clouds churned above Xiaochen's mountain peak, and thunder roared endlessly. Occasionally electricity flashed in the air. Xiaochen lay on a rock, looking at the scenery with an indifferent expression as he toyed with the lunar shadow saber with one hand. Sometimes the lunar shadow saber landed on Xiaochen's fingertip. In the next moment, Xiaochen's arm gently bumped into it. The lunar shadow saber moved about nimbly, like Xiaochen had an extra arm. The lunar shadow saber's movements were graceful and natural, revealing a simple beauty. Suddenly, the dark clouds in the sky were sliced in half by an invisible force, like a sharp blade. It was like a soldier avoiding a general. This was the Western Sea Dragon King Aolang. As he walked over step by step, he used his invisible aura to carve out a path for himself in Xiao Chen's saber domain. The Western Sea Dragon King is here. Sorry for not coming out to greet you. This junior has been impolite. Ao Lang grabbed the leaping lunar shadow saber with a flip of his hand and gently placed it on the ground. Xiao Chen did not stand up. Instead, he sat on the flame rock and said indifferently as he looked at the newcomer. Within Xiao Chen's saber domain, Ao Lang felt like he was in his own world, completely unaffected. Ao Lang sized up Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had long hair, white robes, and a handsome face. His eyes were as deep as an ancient well. Xiao Chen exuded an unperturbed, calm, and composed air. What a strong mental state. After seeing me, he can still remain so calm, not angry, not arrogant, and not rash. However, Xiao Chen's next words and actions incited the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang's rage once more. Since Xiao Chen already knew his identity, he still did not stand up to greet him, putting on airs before him. You also know that you were impolite? You are the first blue-robed emperor who dares to sit and speak to me. Who taught you to be so arrogant? Although the Western Sea Dragon King was furious, it was not that he did not act rashly. Instead, he grasped a point and started to pressure Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "You are a senior, a seventh heaven sovereign martial emperor. He can kill me with a single thought. I was supposed to be humble and bow, but you are the West Sea Dragon King. And I am also the Blue Dragon King appointed by the Thunder King of Bushan Palace. We are both Dragon Kings. If I were to bow my head to you, it would be equivalent to Bushan Palace lowering its head to you. You would not be able to accept my bow." Ao Lang's expression changed slightly. Xiao Chen was eloquent. What a great! I am not worthy of his respect. Ao Lang had no way of retorting. He easily neutralized the pressure from his words, not giving him any chance at all. Xiao Chen stood up and continued. "Senior, you are probably here for the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony this month, right? What advice do you have for me? Feel free to speak freely." Ao Lang narrowed his eyes slightly. For the first time, he felt that this youth before him was exceptionally difficult to deal with. It felt like his hands and feet were tied. "Let me ask you this. Did you think about the feelings of my Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace when you established the Dragon's Gate in this Western Sea? If the luck of Heaven Dragon City increases, the luck of my Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace will definitely decrease. Do you think that there is anything to discuss between us?" Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and said sullenly, "Of course there is. Since the decrease in luck is unavoidable, why not assess the situation and rely on whoever has great luck? Naturally, my luck will not decrease. Instead, it will rise with the tide, rising higher and higher. If we oppose each other, naturally, it will be hard to avoid a decrease in luck." When Ao Lang heard this, he laughed loudly and said, "You are really boundlessly arrogant. You are just an insignificant consummation blue-robed emperor, and you actually dare to say such words before me. You want me to assess the situation and make the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace lower its head to you? You are too naive." "Naive?" Xiao Chen's lips curled up slightly. With a flash, he landed on a tall rock at the edge of the cliff. Then he stood at the highest point of this world and looked down at Ao Lang. "Dragon King, are you still unable to see the situation clearly? This world has changed long ago. Soon a golden age will descend. Batches of outstanding talents will push open the Emperor's door. In the situation, all decaying things that do not know how to adapt will be washed away by the current until their bones shatter. If we can take advantage of the situation, the old tree can blossom. The withered tree will gain new life and rise further. Western Sea Dragon King, can't you see through it? Or do you feel that you are a seventh heaven martial emperor and a sovereign martial emperor? That is already something to be proud of, and that there is no need to improve further?" A strong wind blew. This was the wind of kingship. As Xiao Chen stood on the rock, he silently spread out the state of kingship from his body. The separated thunderclouds in the sky slowly closed. Xiao Chen's saber domain slowly forced the Western Sea Dragon King out. The Western Sea Dragon King frowned heavily. He did not resist, letting the other party force him out. In reality, as long as the Western Sea Dragon King was willing, Xiao Chen would not be able to force him out. However, Xiao Chen's words caused the Western Sea Dragon King's mind to buzz. The Western Sea Dragon King entered deep thought. This world had already changed. If one did not follow the trend, one would end up getting crushed by the surging current. The Western Sea Dragon King's original intention was to use the trend to force Xiao Chen. Who knew, in the end, Xiao Chen actually used the trend to force him. Boom! Suddenly, the Western Sea Dragon King startled awake. He glared, and his aura burst forth. With this glance, the thunderclouds in the sky immediately turned to nothing. The thunderclouds were gone, and the sunlight immediately swept down, bathing the top of the mountain in golden light. What a great blue dragon king! If he becomes Emperor Wu, with such elegance, he will definitely be able to convince me. Ao Lang calmed himself down and said indifferently, "If you become a martial emperor, perhaps I might be able to stop after hearing what you said. However, even though you are now in limitless glory, tribulation clouds cover your head. You cannot even determine your own future. Yet you want to convince me?" After saying that, the Western Sea Dragon King stepped forward. Ao Jiao said coldly, "I'll give you a chance. If you give up on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate now, my Divine Dragon Palace will definitely not seek trouble for your Heaven Dragon City in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for forcing you with my momentum. On the day of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, I will show you what the trend is. Even gods and Buddhas cannot stop me." Bathed in the sunlight, Xiao Chun faced the Western Sea Dragon King's overbearing aura. Then he enunciated every word clearly. "In that case, I will respectfully await your arrival. Show me the overwhelming momentum that you speak of." Humph! The Western Sea Dragon King stomped his foot and said coldly, "Goodbye. Don't blame me for bullying you, not giving you a chance." Bang! 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 The instant the Western Sea Dragon King turned around, the mountain below Xiao Chun crumbled, turning into countless shards. Under the Western Sea Dragon King's foot, the tall mountain crumbled and crumbled effortlessly. It is impolite not to reciprocate. Since Senior destroyed this mountain, then bring it back as well. The white-robed Xiao Chun instantly drew the lunar shadow saber in his hand. Whoosh! The originally crumbling saber domain quickly recovered in an instant, and the thunderclouds reformed. The instant the saber light flickered, the mountain, which had shattered into countless shards, reformed with the vast saber intent that Xiao Chun executed with his saber domain. However, this time, it no longer looked like a mountain. Instead, it looked like a saber. A 3-kilometer-long saber flickered with purple electric light. As Xiao Chun swung his saber, it moved like lightning towards the Western Sea Dragon King. Disdain flashed in the eyes of the Western Sea Dragon King. Then he turned around and threw a palm strike. 7 layers of light appeared behind him. The vast primordial energy caused space to ripple like water. The force of the palm strike blocked the saber. As expected, the scene of the saber turning into powder did not appear. Instead, it gave off a muffled sound like thunder on a clear day, echoing in all directions. Xiao Chun sheathed his saber and smiled. "I'll have to trouble Senior to take this mountain away." A grave look flashed in Ao Lang's eyes. He could tell that Xiao Chun's saber domain had already reached a certain level. Earlier, when Ao Lang looked over, his vast aura had not shattered the other party's saber domain. However, it had followed Xiao Chun's thoughts and instantly hid in the surroundings. The saber domain had always been there. Hence, the other party could rely on the saber domain to execute such a strong saber strike in such a short time. Good saber technique. You have made this king see you in a different light once again. I will borrow this mountain for now. I will return it to you after the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. In this battle, he had unknowingly fallen into a disadvantageous position before a junior. Ao Lang felt that he was too ashamed to remain here. He suppressed the rage in his heart and turned his head to glare at Xiao Chun. Then he left Heaven Dragon Island at lightning speed. Like a little bird, Xiao Chun slowly descended from the sky. A light flashed in his eyes as he muttered to himself, "Saber domain, saber domain. The saber is in front, and the domain is behind. Of course, the saber is more important." This exchange with the Western Sea Dragon King allowed Xiao Chun to gain an even more thorough understanding of the saber domain. Xiaochen could no longer cultivate the saber domain according to the experience of others. Senior Lan had only led Xiaochen through the door. Xiaochen could only rely on himself for the rest. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Wind whistled and two figures landed. It was Mo Chun and Lan Xiaobai rushing over at the same time. When they saw the mountain where Xiaochen cultivated turn into nothing, their expressions changed drastically. What's going on? Who was here earlier? Xiaochen answered honestly, the Western Sea Dragon King, Ao Lang. When Lan Xiaobai and Mo Chun heard this, their hearts sank at the same time. A shadow flashed in their minds. The commotion caused by the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony was already starting to show. It had only been a few days, and the Western Sea Dragon King could not help but come out personally. In that case, what kind of pressure would he face during the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony in the future? Ao Lang showed a sullen expression as he returned to the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, with a huge stone saber on his back. At this moment, the three vice palace masters of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace had already rushed to the other Divine Dragon Palaces. The martial emperor elders had gone to seek out the many holy lands of the heavenly starry ocean. When the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master Ao saw Ao Lang return, he revealed an expression of joy and immediately led some people to welcome him. Father, you must have taught Xiaochen a ruthless lesson, right? Ao said excitedly. Back then, Xiaochen had forced him to his knees with one palm strike. That memory was still fresh in his mind. Ao Lang showed a sullen expression, not saying anything. Ao could not make out Ao's expression, so he continued to smile and chatter. As Ao sized up the exaggerated 3-kilometer-long stone saber, he said, Father, this is your war trophy, right? This saber is pretty good. What rank is it? That brat Xiaochen will definitely feel the pinch. Pa. After suppressing the rage in his heart for a long time, Ao Lang could no longer hold it in. He slapped Ao Lang's face and said, Trash! If you had even a tenth of Xiaochen's elegance, I would not have to worry so much about him re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. Only then did the group of attendants realize that the Dragon King had suffered a loss at Heaven Dragon Island, and was currently feeling depressed. Chapter 1275. Bang! Xiao Lang put down the stone saber on his back, causing the ground to tremble. The lightning saber intent on the saber had yet to vanish, crackling and flickering endlessly. Ao Lang said coldly, Look after this stone saber well. On the day of the ceremony, I will personally deliver it to that brat. After thinking for a while, Ao Lang looked into the distance and said indifferently, I'm afraid that I will have to personally go to some places. After personally seeing Xiaochen, Ao Lang's heart turned even heavier. The Blue Dragon King Xiaochen was much harder to deal with than he had imagined. At the same time, the envoys of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace arrived in the various holy lands of the heavenly starry ocean. When these holy lords heard the purpose of the envoys' arrival, they all rejoiced in their hearts. Just as they were worrying about how to deal with Xiaochen, the Western Sea Divine Dragon King stepped forward to lead the charge. This was simply the best outcome. One Xiaochen was not scary. What was scary was the Haotian Prime behind Xiaochen and the Thunder King. Since someone was willing to bear this unknown revenge and take the lead to ruin the ceremony, these holy lords were naturally happy to do this favor. The Heavenly Province Academy, the Five Poison Sect, and the Zodiac Hall, these three immortal holy lands, did not even think about it before agreeing to the Western Sea Dragon King's invitation. Only the Yinyang Paradise, Myriad Fiend Island, and the Lunar Palace did not respond immediately. As for the other ancient noble clans, most of them agreed. On Myriad Fiend Island, Di Xinhan, who had fought with Xiaochen at the Four Seas Hero Gathering, did his best to dissuade the many fiends on the island from participating in the Western Sea Dragon King's plan. Di Xinhan advised, Uncles, I fought with this Xiaochen before. It is fine if this person is nothing, but he will definitely not be a second Qing emperor. The Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony is most likely the responsibility of the Xiao clan's descendants, to revive the Dragon's Gate and protect its inheritance. Dear, you are still young. You do not know what it means for him to re-establish the Dragon's Gate. Whether he is willing or not, when the Dragon's Gate is re-established in the heavenly starry ocean, the luck of the various holy lands will uncontrollably flow to him. Di Xinhan shook his head and said, "This is a reason that only the weak would agree to. The strong and the weak depend on themselves. If that's the case, then even if our demon island is given great luck, it will certainly not be able to develop." As they argued endlessly, an aged voice suddenly came from the simple and unadorned palace. "Just prepare a generous gift for the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Don't participate in anything else." The moment the voice rang out, the faces of everyone present changed. The one who had spoken was Patriarch Myriad Demon. The old ancestor of the Demon Island has a supreme status on the Demon Island. Like the Lunar Palace's Palace Master and the Zodiac Hall's Astral Lord, he was one of the three primes. When the old ancestor spoke, the group of elders immediately stopped objecting. Di Xinhan heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt somewhat suspicious. He had no idea why the old ancestor, who had been in seclusion for 1,000 years, would suddenly care about this matter. The bewitching women of the Yinyang Paradise discussed for a while before rejecting the Western Sea Dragon King's envoy as well. On the other hand, he giggled and asked the emissary to stay in the Yinyang Paradise for a few more days. This startled the emissary into laughing abashedly and quickly leaving. The women of the Yinyang Paradise were famous for being ruthless. How could the emissary dare to stay? This made the group of women cover their mouths and laugh endlessly. Inside the Lunar Palace, the Lunar Palace's Palace Master, who had been tempted by the emissary's persuasion, was interrupted by Yu Bingyun, who suddenly rushed back. After learning that Xiao Chen had saved Yu Bingyun's life, the Lunar Palace's Palace Master showed a complicated expression, remaining silent for a long time. Yu Bingyun, who was at the side, felt very nervous. She did not know what decision her master would make in the end. Just take it as repaying him a favor. The Lunar Palace will not participate in this matter. As for whether he can clear this stage or not, that will depend on himself. The Lunar Palace will absolutely not help the Qing Emperor's descendant. Yu Bingyun's heart sank. This was not the result she wanted. However, when she saw her master's firm tone, she did not dare to say anything more. Of the 6 immortal holy lands, although 3 of them confirmed that they would not participate, the Western Sea Dragon King still managed to win over the other 3 holy lands and most of the ancient noble clans. Together with them, they would be a colossus that could force any faction to give way. The Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang personally appeared and gathered the leaders of these factions together. Then, he started to discuss the countermeasures that he had prepared long ago. The countermeasures were very simple. They would use their strength to suppress others, using their vast faction to put boundless pressure on Xiao Chen, making him give up on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The storm targeting the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony had already accumulated horrifying energy. Once the time was up, it would launch a sneak attack. However, the Western Sea Dragon King still did not seem satisfied. After organizing the factions of the heavenly starry ocean, he personally set off for the Kunlun continent. At a certain mysterious seabed in the heavenly starry ocean, Yi Ling, who had already reconnected his arm, walked hastily through the palace at the bottom of the sea, rushing to a secret room. The most mysterious person in the entire oceanic world sat in the secret room, the Treasure Master. Yi Ling did not push open the door to the secret room. In reality, even a sovereign martial emperor would find it hard to push open this door. Outside the secret room, Yi Ling directly said, "Father, the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony will be held in half a month. At that time, Xiao Chen will re-establish the Dragon's Gate and formally establish the Dragon's Gate." However, there was no commotion from the secret room at all. It seemed like the person inside was not interested in this news at all. "Father, say something." He broke off both my arms. "You have not helped me take revenge for this. Now he is going to re-establish the Dragon's Gate. Could it be that we are just going to watch as that happens?" Yi Ling said in a somewhat trembling voice as he knelt on the ground, feeling anxious. Inside the secret room, the Treasure Master, who was shrouded in black shadows, opened his eyes. 14 images surrounded him, guarding him. If one looked carefully, one would discover that these images were exactly the same as the huge immortal statues that the treasure master controlled in the heavenly starry ocean. However, they were much smaller. I have my own plans for this matter. There is no need for you to worry about it. Cultivate properly and don't waste your time, the treasure master said indifferently. Yiling did not get up. Feeling dissatisfied, he asked, Father, when can I take revenge for my arms? Anytime. As long as you are stronger than him. There is no need to continue pestering me. You are interrupting my closed-door cultivation. The treasure master waved his hand, and a strong energy surged through the air. Whether Yiling was willing or not, he was pushed out of the many barriers, unable to enter again. Undercurrents flowed, and a storm arrived. Xiaochun, who stirred up such a storm, did not show much anxiety. He continued to comprehend the island in a seemingly leisurely manner, cultivating without stopping for even a moment. Xiaochun would only read the letters he received when he was free. The people in the letters were all honored guests that he had invited to participate in the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. As Xiaochun looked at the letters with roughly the same content, he felt gratified. Xiaochun did not have many friends. However, at the crucial moment, they would help him without hesitation, not delaying at all. The Northern Sea Alliance's alliance chief, the 13 great bandits of the Black Sea, the Geomaster Jiang Tian, the merfolk Queen Yao Yan, the White-Bone Sovereign. All these people replied with simple words. However, their attitudes were very clear in their words. After putting away the letters, Xiaochun muttered, Western Sea Dragon King, you want to use power to suppress me. Let's see who will be the one suppressing whom. Right after Xiaochun put away the letters, a guest arrived in the courtyard. Emochen walked in a hurry. Emochen appeared somewhat fatigued. Aside from fatigue, there was also a heavy look in the depths of her eyes. Seeing Emochen enter, Xiaochun revealed a smile. He stood up and invited her to take a seat. Then he personally poured tea for her and served her well. Big brother Xiaochun, there is no need to be so polite with me. Emochen picked up the teacup and took a sip, smiling faintly. It's what I should do. I owe you too much. Everything I do is what I should do. Xiaochun said sincerely, his words filled with sincerity. Emochen and Lan Xiaobai had been the ones handling the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. They had been incredibly busy, not having any time to rest. On the other hand, Xiaochun, the main character of this matter, was surprisingly idle. Aside from comprehending the saber domain, he did not do anything else. When Xiaochun wanted to help, Emochen sternly rejected him, not letting him interfere. In reality, Xiaochun also knew that Emochen felt sorry for him. Emochen knew better than anyone that the one under the greatest pressure in re-establishing the Dragon's Gate would definitely be Xiaochun. If Emochen could help Xiaochun a little, she would definitely do her best, not letting Xiaochun worry too much. Emochen put down the teacup and cut to the chase, directly stating the purpose of her visit. Everything is ready. We will start paying respects to the ancestors 3 days from now. Xiaobai told me to come and inform you. Paying respects to the ancestors was the first step of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. After paying respects to the ancestors, it was time to open the doors to welcome guests and receive congratulations from all over. What would come would eventually come. However, now that it really came, Xiaochun could not help but feel somewhat rueful. Is it starting? Time really flies. Time did indeed pass very quickly. If Xiaochun counted carefully, he had already been in the Kunlun realm for 14 years. Since he left Mo City's Xiao clan, it had been even longer. When he looked back, only a blink of an eye had passed. Big brother Xiao. Emochen interrupted when she saw Xiaochun's somewhat distracted expression. Xiaochun recovered his wits and smiled. I understand. I will make my preparations 3 days from now. Paying respects to the ancestors is a major matter. There cannot be any mistakes. Emochen revealed a trace of worry in her eyes. There is no need to worry about paying respects to the ancestors. Even if those people do not understand the rules, they will not cause trouble at this time. After paying respects to the ancestors is the unveiling of the plaque. We will have to accept the congratulations from all over. This is the key. When paying respects to the ancestors, no one would come and cause trouble for you. However, it would be hard to say when people from all over came to congratulate you and open the doors to welcome guests. A resolute light appeared in Xiaochen's eyes. I want to re-establish the Dragon's Gate. No one can stop me. 3 days later, the paying respects to the ancestors began. Xiaochen stood in the middle, with Mo Chun and Lan Xiaobai on his left and right. Yu Chenxi, Jinlin, Yu, and the others followed behind. The group had solemn expressions as they arrived at the Blue Dragon Mausoleum outside Heaven Dragon City. Buried under the Blue Dragon Mausoleum were the remains of the Dragon's Gate Primes, the heroic spirits that fought to the death for the Dragon's Gate. Many nameless tombstones stood erect, adding a sense of solemnity to this solemn atmosphere. Xiaochen knelt on the ground, feeling a sense of responsibility and emotion in his heart as he knelt before these Dragon's Gate martyrs. In the past, the Dragon's Gate swept through the world, achieving great military merits. However, luck fluctuated. The Qing Emperor fell, and the Dragon's Gate was destroyed. 10,000 years later, there were no inheritances. Chapter 1276. During the solemn and respectful ancestral worship ceremony, an old man announced the glory and decline of the Dragon's Gate in a loud and clear voice. Originally, most people already knew about this matter. However, such a scene deeply touched everyone's hearts. In the history of the Kunlun realm, no sect had ever had such a glorious history as the Dragon's Gate. The Dragon's Gate swept through everywhere, unrivaled in the world, and no one dared to disobey it. However, such a strong sect did not fall to the deep abyss demon races in the end. Instead, it fell to the many holy lands of the Kunlun realm. The glory came to an end. The Xiao clan's direct bloodline was chased down to the lower realm, becoming a small clan that declined. Just for the sake of survival, they had to struggle in fear. They could not even deal with a few unranked clans. If the story ended here, it would only make people sigh a little before there would be no more. After the Qing Emperor, the white-robed Xiaochen appeared. In a few short years, he gained great fame in the Kunlun realm. He swept through all the younger generation of the Kunlun continent and the Four Seas. Now, as a consummation blue-robed emperor, Xiaochen defeated a true Emperor Wu. After the Qing Emperor, Xiaochen carried great luck and fame, announcing to the world that the Dragon's Gate, which was destroyed 10,000 years ago, would reappear today. The ancestral worship ceremony proceeded in an orderly manner, following the procedure that Lan Xiaobai had prepared long ago, proceeding step by step. Splash, splash, splash. Xiaochen picked up a flask of fine wine and poured it all over the ground. Then he slowly raised his cup. The Dragon's Gate's direct descendants behind him raised their cups as well, facing the Blue Dragon Mausoleum and draining it in one go. Xiaochen's eyes blazed with determination. He had waited too long for this day. He had also waited long enough to offer this cup of wine to the heroic spirits of the Dragon's Gate's ancestors. Let's go. Everyone follow me. Let's open the gates and welcome the guests, to congratulate the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment. Xiaochen placed the empty wine cup on the ground. Then, he turned around and led the group to the Blue Dragon Plaza. There was an unveiling ceremony waiting for Xiaochen. There was also a storm waiting for Xiaochen to endure. Many guests filled the Blue Dragon Plaza. The Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony was a major event that had already startled the entire heavenly starry ocean. Almost all the cultivators who did not have urgent matters on hand, and did not need to enter closed-door cultivation rushed over. This was a rare event that happened once in 1,000 years. These people did not want to miss this chance. Moreover, everyone knew that there would definitely be a good show to watch during the ceremony. They casually prepared a congratulatory gift and waited for the show to begin. On the high platform, Xiaochen sat in the middle, looking at the bustling crowd in the square. His expression did not change much. Lan Xiaobai had already made arrangements to welcome these cultivators from all over the world. Aside from a small number of people who were qualified to stand on this high platform, the rest did not need Xiaochen to personally welcome them. I am Feng Bing of the Eastern Sea. I am here to congratulate the Blue Dragon King on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The Southern Sea's sky-splitting sect is here to congratulate the Blue Dragon King on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The Autumn Water Palace is here to congratulate the Blue Dragon King on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. We present a congratulatory gift. People kept coming to congratulate him, and the gifts were casually placed aside, piling up like a mountain. It was noisy and bustling, but Xiao Chen's heart was tranquil. Aside from standing up to greet people he knew and reminiscing about old times, Xiao Chen's gaze remained fixed on the Dragon's Gate's mountain tablet on the high platform. The Dragon's Gate's mountain tablet was personally made by the Qing Emperor using the heaven-subduing stone. At this moment, it was covered by azure dragon flags. However, when the dragon banner was unfurled and the mountain tablet reappeared, the most crucial step of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony would be completed. Seeing that it was almost noon, the people around Xiaochen started to get anxious. For some reason, the honored guests of the heavenly starry ocean, who should have arrived long ago, did not show up even though the unveiling ceremony was about to begin. Xiaochen, something seems to have happened, Lan Xiaobai sent an anxious voice projection. Xiaochen remained calm, indicating that there was no need to worry. Reporting. The Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang leads the divine dragon palaces of the four seas, the 7 colored dragon marquises, the 3 immortal holy lands, and the 9 ancient noble clans, to congratulate the Blue Dragon King on re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. It was a long list of names, and every single one of them had a shocking background. They were all overlords of a region, and as they read on, their voices began to tremble. At the entrance of the Blue Dragon Plaza, the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang laughed loudly as he led a group of people over in a grandiose manner. These people's footsteps were heavy as they walked over in a grandiose manner, causing the ground to tremble. Their auras were pressing, and their gazes were as sharp as sabers as they pointed at Xiao Chun, who sat in the middle of the high platform. The most eye-catching thing was that each of these people carried a 3-kilometer-long weapon on their back. Be it a stone saber, a spear, or a treasure sword, all of them were made of stone without exception. They looked very strange, inciting discussion among the crowd. After Ao Lang walked in, the extraordinarily bustling plaza instantly turned extremely quiet. No one dared to speak loudly. Everyone knew that Ao Lang was here to cause trouble. When everyone looked at the various major characters with overwhelming auras beside the Western Sea Dragon King, their hearts sank. Under the pressure of the strong auras, they found breathing somewhat difficult. Ao Lang laughed loudly and said, "Little brother Xiaochun, as you wished, this king and the other fellow Taoists arrived on time. Hey, something seems off. Xiaochun, your pomp seems a little small. Why do I not see a single one of the 9 ranks of the great families? The re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate is a little too stingy." Ha ha. Xiaochun's heart skipped a beat. He guessed that something had happened to the 9 ranks of the great families that he invited, and the Western Sea Dragon King blocked them. However, Xiaochen did not panic. Ao Lang might be able to block the people of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, he did not believe that the other party could block the truly major characters. Xiaochen stood up and said with a double meaning, "Senior Ao is too kind. With the group of people that Senior Ao is leading, the pomp is already sufficient." Ao Lang smiled and said, "Since we are here, we cannot come empty-handed. Blue Dragon King, please give us some face and accept my Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's congratulatory gift." Right after Ao Lang spoke, his face sank. He raised the huge stone saber on his back and circulated his primordial energy, charging ferociously at Xiaochen. The 3-kilometer-long stone saber was as large as a mountain. Infused with primordial energy, its destructive power was easy to imagine. "Blue Dragon King, please give us some face and accept my 5 poison sects congratulatory gift." "Blue Dragon King, please do not give us any face for the congratulatory gift of my Heavenly Province Academy. There is also my Zodiac Hall's congratulatory gift. Please, Blue Dragon King, accept it as well. The ancient noble clans have also prepared a generous gift. Please, Blue Dragon King, accept it." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Amid everyone's startled cries, 10 odd 3-kilometer-long sabers infused with primordial energy surged toward Xiaochen, who was on the high platform. The honored guests on the high platform had never seen such a formation before. They all paled in fright as they quickly fled. Every 3-kilometer-long saber was made by a greater heavenly emperor Wu at the very least. Such a horrifying attack was equivalent to 10-odd greater heavenly emperor Wu launching their peak strikes at the same time. If Xiaochen stood there and did not leave, aside from getting injured to the point where he could not get up, there would be no other result. As Xiaochen looked at the incoming sabers, rage burned in his heart. He had long expected that the Western Sea Dragon King would do anything to disrupt the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. However, he had not expected it to be so direct. A powerful storm roared over. If Xiaochen did not retreat, he would definitely die a horrible death. However, he was the Dragon's Gate's master. If he retreated, this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony would be a joke. This was a pile of lethal congratulatory gifts. Even if he did not want to accept them, he had to accept them. The Western Sea Dragon King smiled coldly and said, "Blue Dragon King, if you do not even give us this little face, I think you might as well stop holding this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. You are not even accepting our congratulatory gifts. Your Dragon's Gate must be filled with wild ambition, completely looking down on us." The sky was completely covered by dozens of giant blades, blocking all the sunlight. The square was instantly plunged into darkness. The 10-odd huge sabers pressed towards the high platform seemingly slowly, but were actually very fast. As they moved slowly, they pressed down on the entire space, looking like waves surging and surging. Everyone knew that with Xiaochen's strength, he would not be able to receive these 10-odd huge sabers. However, the Western Sea Dragon King still said that. Clearly, he wanted to force Xiaochen into a dead end. Although Xiaochen could defeat the first Heaven Emperor Wu with his current strength, he was only a consummation blue-robed emperor, after all. How could he receive so many huge sabers? Each of the 10-odd huge sabers contained a strong strike from a greater heavenly emperor Wu. Even just one saber was more than enough to deal with Xiaochen. Furthermore, there were 10-odd sabers at the same time. This was simply asking for his life. It's over. Now, the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony is going to fail from the start. Xiaochen will definitely not dare to receive the attacks of 13 greater heavenly emperor Wu. How unfortunate. I thought that there would be an evenly matched fight. Unexpectedly, the Western Sea Dragon King is so decisive, not giving Xiaochen a chance to vent at all. The unveiling ceremony of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony has not started yet. It looks like it will die in the womb. Even if it does not die in the womb, he will not be able to re-establish the Dragon's Gate. Did you not see what kind of people are following the Western Sea Dragon King? As the discussions continued, all the guests on the high platform had already left in fright. Only Xiaochen and Emochen remained. A horrifying might pressed down, and the two felt heavy pressure on their shoulders. It was like they were carrying a mountain, wanting to crush every inch of their bones. Big brother Xiaochen, I'm going to activate the Heaven Dragon City's Blue Dragon Heaven Locking Formation. Otherwise, I will not be able to receive these 14 huge sabers. The Heavenly Dragon City itself was a huge secret treasure. When it was built, every corner tower was covered in complicated array patterns. There were restrictions everywhere. Although it was not completed yet, the Blue Dragon Heaven Locking Formation in the city was more than enough to receive these 14 huge sabers. There's no need. The Blue Dragon Heaven Locking Formation was the Dragon's Gate's greatest trump card. It would be too much of a pity to use it now. Xiaochen looked coldly at the Western Sea Dragon King Aolang. Then he said indifferently, Senior Ao is too serious. How can I not accept the congratulatory gifts of the various holy lands? The entire place was set abuzz. Xiaochen's decision was unexpected. Unexpectedly, he chose to step forward. What a madman! Is he committing suicide? The Western Sea Dragon King laughed loudly and said in an overbearing manner, In that case, what are you standing there for? Quickly accept it. We already sent you the congratulatory gifts. However, if you do not appreciate it, don't blame us for not giving you face. Disdain flashed in the eyes of the leaders of the various holy lands and ancient noble clans. Chapter 1277. By doing this, Xiaochen would be seeking death. The Western Sea Dragon King's move was brilliant. Whether Xiao Chen received it or not, he would be at a disadvantage. Big brother Xiao. Emo Chen said anxiously. Xiao Chen pushed gently, and a gentle force pushed Emo Chen off the platform. Xiao Chen walked forward step by step, and arrived before the mountain tablet covered by the dragon banner. Then he looked calmly at the 14 gargantuan weapons. Clearly, the Western Sea Dragon King was someone who held a grudge. Back then, he suffered a small loss when facing Xiao Chen's 3-kilometer-long stone saber. Now he immediately returned the favor tenfold, 100-fold, at the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Xiao Chen looked around and focused on the 3-kilometer-long stone saber at the very front. This stone saber was formed by his saber intent. Now that the Western Sea Dragon King personally executed it, its might was the greatest. He had to receive this 3-kilometer-long stone saber first. Whoosh! Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and soared into the air, directly flying towards that 3-kilometer-long stone saber. Vital chi surged in Xiao Chen's body as he materialized the blue dragon battle armor. Then he burst forth with 20 dragon force. Amid dragon roars, 20 dragon-shaped energy currents circled behind Xiao Chen. Deities descending, tenfold combat prowess. A golden light entered Xiao Chen's body, and his aura soared. His 20 dragon force instantly turned into 200 dragon force. Ever since Xiao Chen discovered that his physiological lifespan was severely damaged, he rarely used deities descending, this heaven-defying martial technique that could only deal 1,000 damage to one's opponent, but not 800. However, he had to use it today. Before everyone's incredulous gazes, Xiao Chen, who executed deities descending, was truly like a deity. First, he used a palm strike to break the spatial waves created by the 14 gargantuan weapons. Then, he grabbed the 3-kilometer-long stone saber at the very front with his bare hands. Buzz! The space around them shook, and the huge waves that had surged over were reversed by this intense collision. The other 13 giant blades that were flying over all paused, and their speed slowed down significantly. Xiao Chen let out a loud shout. His hand grasped the tip of the 1,000-feet-long stone saber, and fiercely lifted it up. Then he pushed his palm forward. With a loud bang, the stone saber fell heavily in front of the platform and stood upright. He caught it. Everyone gasped in surprise. Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen had caught the giant blade without any damage. However, the situation was still not optimistic. There were still 13 giant blades behind them, and each of them had the power of a greater celestial emperor Wu. Ha! Western Sea Dragon King, you are really light. When the Vice Palace Master of the Zodiac Hall saw that the Western Sea Dragon King's 3-kilometer-long stone saber was caught, he mocked. Aolang felt his face heat up. This brat actually caught his stone saber perfectly unscathed. He had utterly embarrassed himself before the group of martial emperors. Xiao Chen suppressed the surging qi and blood in his body, and looked at the second gargantuan weapon. That was a 3-kilometer-long spear. This spear contained strong astral energy. When the Vice Palace Master of the Zodiac Hall executed it, its might was second only to the 3-kilometer-long stone saber. Pusiai. The cycle banner soared into the sky from Xiao Chen's body. As the astral banner fluttered, it gave off the sound of waves. Massacre, death, ruin, despair, and grief. 5-colored starlight descended from the sky. Colorful light shone everywhere. Under the illumination of the 5-colored starlight, the Blue Dragon Plaza turned into a dreamy land. Xiao Chen's delicate face showed determination, calmness, and decisiveness. He stretched out his hand and grasped the cycle banner. When the 5-colored starlight landed, he roared ferociously and waved the cycle banner in the sky. The astral banner spun, and a vast astral energy surged out from it, suppressing the astral energy in the 3-kilometer-long spear in one go. A strong suction pulled on the 3-kilometer-long spear. Bang! It landed beside the 3-kilometer-long stone saber. Earlier, the Vice Palace Master of the Zodiac Hall had been mocking the Western Sea Dragon King for not being strong enough. Who could have imagined that right after he spoke, Xiao Chen would catch his spear even more easily? The Vice Palace Master of the Zodiac Hall immediately changed his expression. Fortunately, the Western Sea Dragon King did not make things difficult for him. Otherwise, it would be even more embarrassing. How powerful! Xiao Chun managed to catch the two most powerful swords. Who knows, he might be able to catch all of them. The Blue Dragon King really made a lot of preparations for this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. The cultivators present all felt an irrepressible excitement. If Xiao Chun could really catch all of them, this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony would be interesting. He would trample on the faces of the many holy lands. Just thinking about it made everyone excited. Xiao Chun successfully caught the two strongest sabers. As long as he caught the gargantuan sabers from the Five Poison Sect and the Heavenly Province Academy, the other two holy lands, the gargantuan sabers would be easier to deal with. As for the remaining 10 giant blades, they were easier to deal with. Those from the clan of the Ancients and other dragon palaces were much weaker. The vice sect master of the Five Poison Sect smiled coldly and said, "Let's see how you catch the gargantuan saber of my Five Poison Sect." This stone saber is infused with 10,000 kinds of poison from the inside out. The 3-kilometer-long gargantuan saber of the Five Poison Sect was a staff. It was not very mighty, but it was the most dangerous. Once touched, all sorts of strange poisons would enter the body. Although it would be hard for a half-step golden body to die from poison, one's combat prowess would inevitably decrease by more than half. However, the most crucial thing now was not the Five Poison Sect's gargantuan saber. Instead, it was the 10-odd gargantuan sabers that already charged over, not giving Xiao Chun a chance to catch them alone. The danger of this place could not be described with words. Facing the 12 gargantuan sabers, Xiao Chun was as insignificant as an ant under the overwhelming might and pressure. He could be crushed into bits at any moment. The hearts of the Dragon's Gate's people all tensed up. As they looked at Xiao Chun in the air, they all felt very nervous. Just at this moment, a ferocious look flashed in the eyes of the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang. He clapped his hands and said, "The Blue Dragon King is a good move, connecting two of our congratulatory gifts. However, how can one receive the congratulatory gifts one at a time? Our hearts are connected. Naturally, we have to receive the congratulatory gifts at the same time." Right after the Western Sea Dragon King spoke, he threw a palm strike. Immediately, the 12 gargantuan sabers, which had already arrived, quickly merged together with the Western Sea Dragon King's palm strike. A vast aura suddenly gathered, becoming like a sharp saber stabbing towards Xiao Chun's chest. The originally dangerous situation forced Xiao Chun into a desperate situation once more. What a strong emperor's might! Xiao Chun thought to himself as he felt pain in his chest. His sovereign might showed signs of crumbling. Western Sea Dragon King, can you be any more despicable? The Dragon's Gate's people could not help cursing angrily. This was especially so for Mo Chun, who stood up in anger, and was about to activate the Blue Dragon Heaven-locking formation. The tens of thousands of guests in the Blue Dragon Plaza were also set abuzz. Unexpectedly, the Western Sea Dragon King was actually this shameless. When the Western Sea Dragon King saw the rage of these people, he laughed loudly, feeling very cocky. "What do you mean by despicable? We came from afar to send gifts together. Naturally, the Blue Dragon King will accept all the congratulatory gifts." Xiao Chun, who was in the air, waved his hand to stop the Dragon's Gate's people, who were filled with righteous indignation. Then he looked at the Western Sea Dragon King and said coldly, "Although your hearts are connected, there are differences in strength and status. How are you going to accept the congratulatory gifts? Naturally, I, the Blue Dragon King, have to prioritize. It is not up to you, the Western Sea Dragon King, to tell me what to do." With a thought, Neptune's crown appeared on Xiao Chun's head. In that instant, Xiao Chun's king's might soared. Xiao Chun blocked the emperor's might gathered by the 12 gargantuan weapons. In a clash of auras, he surpassed them significantly. Primordial energy surged out of Xiao Chun's heart of an emperor. Then he threw a palm strike with his left hand, and lofty aspirations burst forth from his chest. A bright moon like fire soared into the air. This was the 1,000-year flame, the profound martial technique that Xiao Chun created. This palm strike contained lofty aspirations and hot-bloodedness. A blazing flame, burning my heart. At the same time, Xiao Chun threw a palm strike with his right hand. A scarlet moon soared into the air, and flowers danced in the air. This was the 1,000-year death, which came from the same source as the 1,000-year flame. The grief of a king does not hate heaven and earth, does not resent the gods and ghosts. Like a moon hanging high, blood dyed the sky. Only I know, admiring myself. The two moons competed with each other, lofty aspirations, hot-bloodedness, and cold grief mixing. When Xiao Chun threw 2 palm strikes, he scattered the 13 gargantuan weapons that had yet to completely form. Whoosh! 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 Xiao Chun's figure flickered. Amid the light of the 2 moons, he sent out another 3 palm strikes and completely scattered the 13 gargantuan weapons. Each palm strike contained 100 strands of primordial energy. Amid the loud rumbling, a terrifying emperor's might radiated out, startling the spectators. After sending out the 3 palm strikes, 2 beams of light flew out of Xiao Chun's eyes, one golden and one white. They were the solar true flame and the lunar true flame. The flames chased each other and quickly materialized a beautiful Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Sweat appeared on Xiao Chun's forehead. He clenched his teeth and shouted, "Spin!" The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram spun rapidly, erupting with bright golden light. As the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram spun, the gargantuan weapons containing the various poisons of the 5 poison sect flew to the side of the Zodiac Hall's spear and fell to the ground. The 5 poison sect old man revealed great shock on his face. How can this be? He caught my congratulatory gift just like that. The myriad poisons are all wasted. Pusii. A 3-kilometer-long sword broke through the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Bathed in fiery light, it flew toward Xiao Chun, radiating a jagged sword intent that was incredibly sharp. This was the congratulatory gift from the Heavenly Province Academy, a 3-kilometer-long sword with the sharpest offensive power. The Heavenly Province Academy old man said coldly, "Even if you catch this sword of mine, you will vomit 3 liters of blood. The 10 gargantuan weapons behind will be more than enough to kill you." Saber. Xiao Chun shouted in his heart. The lunar shadow saber in his hand moved nimbly between his palm and arm. It was like a beautiful woman dancing the most beautiful dance in the world. As Xiao Chun moved, the surging saber intent in his body slowly gathered and surged towards the saber. Xiao Chun's saber domain had already advanced from power to subtlety. Even if he did not bring out his saber domain, his strong saber intent would be sufficient to scare away most of the sword intents in the Kunlun realm. When the gargantuan sword arrived before Xiao Chun, the lunar shadow saber suddenly stopped moving. Xiao Chun narrowed his eyes. His gaze was like a powerful saber as he grasped the lunar shadow saber. Without drawing it, he swung it forward in the time it took for a spark to fly. Xiao Chun used the scabbard to block the tip of the gargantuan sword. It looked like a clash of sabers and swords. However, what mattered was their respective saber intents and sword intents. Without a master to control the gargantuan sword, no matter how strong its sword intent was, it could not compare to the unparalleled saber intent that Xiao Chun had instantly shot out after storing up power. Kung Chong. It was like an immortal zither in the heavens, playing the exquisite zither music of a powerful army. When the insignificant Xiao Chun sent out his saber, he forced the gargantuan sword back by 3 centimeters. Chapter 1278. Xiao Chun's white robes fluttered as he spun around. Then he stepped on the blade of the gargantuan saber. Whoosh! The sword plunged straight down, sinking about 1 meter into the ground. When Xiao Chun landed, he stood firmly on the hilt of the gargantuan saber. His white robes fluttered, and his long hair fluttered. He looked like a powerful bladesman, looking very graceful. The Heavenly Province Academy old man's face immediately turned green. It was like Xiao Chun had not stepped on the sword but his face. As Xiao Chun stood on the hilt of the gargantuan saber, he looked around at the remaining 10 gargantuan sabers. These were not made by the Holy Lands and were much weaker than the previous 4. Xiao Chun held the saber horizontally in front of him and grasped the hilt with his right hand. At this moment his mind was calm. Saber domain. Xiao Chun muttered to himself, and he instantly drew the lunar shadow saber. Together with the long saber, he also drew his thunder saber domain, which had already gone from power to subtlety. The area within 1 kilometer of the thundercloud secret treasure was Xiao Chen's world. The saber intent filling the air was everywhere. With a thought he could form a saber. Whoosh! As the saber light spread out, the astral energy of the 4 gargantuan sabers in front of the tall platform, the boundless sword intent, and everything within 1 kilometer all infused into the saber that Xiao Chen drew. When Xiao Chen felt the vast saber intent on the saber, he grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly and looked at the 10 gargantuan sabers. Then he brandished his saber to his heart's content. This saber strike completely destroyed the aura and state of the 10 gargantuan sabers. Lofty aspirations filled Xiao Chen's heart. He soared into the air and hacked down with his saber again. A vast purple saber chi carrying a strong aura swept through the sky like a purple flame tail. With one saber strike, the gargantuan saber of the Jiang clan, an ancient noble clan, landed beside the gargantuan saber. With another saber strike, the gargantuan saber sent out by the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's Vice Palace Master landed with a boom. Dressed in white and equipped with a treasured saber, he danced in the air in front of the crowd. When the tens of thousands of guests saw Xiao Chen flying in the air, each time he swung his saber, a 3-kilometer-long saber would descend, they were all dumbfounded. Even the Western Sea Dragon King's group appeared entranced, not daring to believe it. What kind of demeanor did one have to have in order to be able to dance in the sky in front of the crowd and make them fall for him? Not daring to make a sound. The purple saber chi that swept across the sky, the huge saber that suddenly fell down, and the white-robed Xiao Chen who danced with the saber. There seemed to be only one scene in the entire world, attracting everyone's attention. In a place that Xiao Chen couldn't see, there were many warships standing in the clouds far away from the Heaven Dragon City. One warship was covered in astral banners. It was the Zodiac Hall's Emperor-grade warship. The Zodiac Hall's palace master personally sat on the warship. A group of junior generation disciples, as well as the Sun Palace's and Moon Palace's holy scions and holy daughters, were all there. These people also saw the scene at the Blue Dragon Plaza. They all rushed to the very front of the deck and looked into the distance in disbelief. Chu Yang muttered, "How can this be? How did he do it? He is about to catch all 14 3-kilometer-long sabers." Such a scene happened on the other warships as well. When one looked carefully, one would discover that the Eastern Sea Dragon King, the Northern Sea Dragon King, the 5 Poison Sects Sect Master, the Heavenly Province Academy's Sect Master, the Yinyang Paradise's Cave Master, all these powerful characters were present. When Yu Bingyun saw this scene from the Lunar Palace's warship, her eyes lit up. The Lunar Palace's palace master rejoiced in her heart. Fortunately, she did not agree to the Western Sea Dragon King's rotten idea. Otherwise, the aloof Lunar Palace would end up making a fool of itself as well. Whoosh! When the final 3-kilometer-long saber landed on another saber, Xiao Chen sheathed it. Xiao Chen put away all 14 3-kilometer-long sabers and lined them up in a row before the high platform. As Xiao Chen slowly descended, he glanced at the stunned Western Sea Dragon King. Then he said calmly, "Men, give the Western Sea Dragon King and the various Holy Land-honored guests a seat. Let the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony continue." The tables and tea tables on the high platform were rearranged. At the entrance of the plaza, 2 pretty maidservants smiled and extended their hands in an inviting gesture. This was clearly an incredibly respectful gesture. However, it made the Western Sea Dragon King and the Holy Land elders all blush, feeling very sullen in their hearts. However, the situation developed in a direction that they did not expect. At this point, there was no reason for them to fall out with Xiao Chen. The Western Sea Dragon King's face flushed red. He clenched his right fist tightly, and his body trembled involuntarily. He did not look like a Dragon King at all. Xiao Chen gently drifted down and returned to the host's seat in the middle. On his left were the Western Sea Dragon King and the greater heavenly sovereigns of the various holy lands, Emperor Wu. On the right were the other guests with a smaller presence, but strength on par with Emperor Wu. The Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony continued. Lan Xiaobai followed the re-establishment ceremonies of the ancient sects and proceeded in an orderly manner. When Xiao Chen saw this, he knew that Lan Xiaobai had put in a lot of effort to achieve this. Not only did he ensure the grandeur of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, but he also did not make too many mistakes, conforming to the norm. This suited Xiao Chen's intentions. There was no need to make the ceremony grand. He just had to go through the necessary procedures. The most important thing was to successfully unveil the Dragon's Gate, announcing to the world the re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate. Letting the world know of the Dragon's Gate's existence, and spreading the Dragon's Gate's deeds would invisibly allow the reborn Dragon's Gate to merge into this great realm and obtain its own luck. On the surface, the situation looked great. However, Xiao Chen was very clear on what exactly the situation was. Aolang, the rotten idea that you came up with is really incredible. You managed to make so many greater heavenly emperor Wu embarrass themselves with you. It's all your fault for coming up with such a lousy idea, saying that we should suppress others with our might, directly suppressing Xiao Chen. Now that I've become a laughingstock, I'm satisfied. I already said long ago that no matter how strong a casual strike from us is, there is a limit to it. Don't underestimate Xiao Chen's potential. This old man has lived for 1,000 years, but this is the first time I have made such a fool of myself. Western Sea Dragon King, no matter what, you have to bear this responsibility. On the surface, the Western Sea Dragon King waited, drinking fine wine, and watching the various activities of the re-establishment ceremony. However, in secret, they sent voice projections to each other, criticizing the Western Sea Dragon King like a flood. Aolang did not say anything, feeling very sullen in his heart. He was the one who came up with this idea. Originally, Aolang thought that this matter was in the bag. Who could have imagined that Xiao Chen would turn things around? This simply caught Aolang off guard. As he faced everyone's criticism, he showed a sullen expression, and did not rebut. I, Aolang, will bear this responsibility. After this matter is settled, I will definitely give everyone a satisfactory answer. As Aolang watched Xiao Chen, who was sitting upright, smiling and in high spirits as he toasted the guests, the rage in his heart blazed even stronger. If Aolang could directly attack, he would have done so long ago and personally dealt with Xiao Chen. Pa! Aolang, who was drinking wine, suddenly smashed the jade wine flask in his hand to the ground. The wine flask shattered, and the peak quality wine spilled all over the ground, giving off an alluring fragrance. Aolang's actions startled everyone. The originally noisy platform immediately fell silent. Although the many guests were shocked by Aolang's actions, they were not surprised. The other party was not here to drink wine and celebrate. How could he just sit there and do nothing? He must have been thinking of ways to cause trouble at every moment, to prevent the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony from continuing. Furthermore, Aolang had given Xiao Chen a congratulatory gift earlier. Originally, he wanted to slap Xiao Chen in the face. In the end, Xiao Chen ruthlessly slapped him back. After holding it in for so long, he definitely could not hold it in anymore. Xiao Chen calmed himself down, and waved his hand to stop the enraged Dragon's Gate's people. Then he raised his eyelids and looked at the Western Sea Dragon King. He said, "Senior, are you not satisfied with the wine or with this wine flask? I'll get someone to change it for Senior." The Western Sea Dragon King did not say anything. He just smiled coldly. After a while, he picked up his wine cup and said slowly, "Blue Dragon King, do you really think that we came all the way here to congratulate you and drink wine? Do you know why I smashed this wine flask? This wine is a bona fide peak quality wine. However, this wine flask is only made of 100-year-old fine jade. How can such an inferior wine flask be worthy of peak quality wine?" Xiao Chen was very intelligent. How could he not know what the other party meant? He said calmly, "If Senior Ao has something to say, just say it directly. There is no need to beat around the bush." Aolang said indifferently, "Since you want me to say it directly, then I will say it directly to you. This wine flask is you, Blue Dragon King. The Dragon's Gate is this peak quality wine. As an inferior wine flask, you cannot contain peak quality wine. If you force it, others will not be able to bear it and smash you to death. If you insist on doing things your own way today, and re-establish the Dragon's Gate, you will end up like this wine flask." Bang, bang, bang. With Aolang taking the lead, the elders of the other holy lands, ancient noble clans, and divine dragon palaces of the four seas all smashed their wine flasks to the ground. Immediately, crackling sounds rang out endlessly, all of them the sound of wine flasks shattering. They are going to fall out with each other. The Western Sea Dragon Kings group decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. They no longer beat around the bush and directly threatened Xiaochen. The atmosphere turned dangerous once again. A huge battle might break out at the slightest disagreement. Interesting. A sovereign martial emperor leading a group of greater heavenly emperor Wu scoundrels are acting shamelessly. What is even more laughable is that their opponent is just a consummation blue-robed emperor. The only one who can push them to this extent is probably the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen. So many major characters are here, but only the Western Sea Dragon King jumped out. He is probably really desperate. After today, the reputation of this group of people will be completely tarnished. This joyous scene on the tall platform did not surprise the other guests or the other cultivators in the plaza. In reality, no one held much hope for Xiaochen's re-establishment of the Dragon's Gate. The surprising thing was that the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen could receive so many congratulatory gifts and fly around in front of so many outstanding talents. Ao Lang stood up and looked at Xiaochen. Then he said coldly, "Not speaking? Does not saying anything mean that you have a chance? You can't be so naive as to think that you can successfully hold the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony after receiving a few congratulatory gifts, right?" Xiaochen's expression remained calm as he swirled the wine cup in his hand. Then he looked in a certain direction in the sky. Under the endless layers of clouds, there were many big shots sitting on the battleships, looking coldly at everything that was happening here. Chapter 1279. Xiaochen withdrew his gaze and ignored Ao Lang. He drained the wine in his cup in one go and took a deep breath. Xiaochen gave Emochen a thumbs up and smiled. The wine that the other party brewed was indeed of peak quality. However, Emochen felt so anxious that she nearly cried. None of the honored guests on the invitation had come. Now that the Western Sea Dragon King had pushed the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony to this extent, Xiaochen could still laugh. Seeing Xiaochen laugh, the Western Sea Dragon King's rage intensified. His voice turned heavier as he said, "Blue Dragon King, to think that you can still laugh? Don't think that you can overturn the heavens just because you have great luck. In our eyes, you are still a minor character, an ant that we can squash to death at any time. Are you done yet? You better shut the fuck up for this old man. You keep saying the same thing over and over again." Xiaochen suddenly shouted, his voice sounding like thunder. His furious expression made his delicate face look extremely frightening. "Pa!" Xiaochen heavily smashed the wine cup in his hand to the ground. Then he shouted himself hoarse. "Are you still going to say that the Haotian Prime is blocked and cannot come? Similarly, the Fox King is blocked and cannot come. The 13 great bandits of the Black Sea, the Northern Sea Alliance, all the honored guests that I invited cannot come. Today no one can help me. As long as I continue with this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, I will shatter like the wine cup." You used the wine cup as an analogy to mock me for overestimating myself, jumping up and down like a clown. Do you really think that I cannot guess the meaning behind your words? The Western Sea Dragon Kings group was somewhat startled by Xiaochen's words. Their voices trembled as they asked, "How did you know? You should not know." That was right. The reason why they dared to fall out with Xiaochen was that none of the honored guests that Xiaochen invited could make it today. The Western Sea Dragon King contacted the corresponding people to block the other party, ensuring that the other party could not reach Heavenly Dragon City. In their opinion, without these big shots, no matter how much Xiaochen jumped around, he was just a clown. How could Xiaochen not know that none of his distinguished guests had arrived? With a slight guess, he could figure out the reason. Ever since he received the congratulatory gift, he had never been complacent. In fact, she already knew what he was thinking. Xiaochen enunciated every word as he looked at Ao Lang. "Let me tell you this, Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang. For the sake of the responsibility in their hearts, some people can disregard everything and risk their lives. You will never understand. I, Xiaochen, have a red heart and warm blood. Even if you dig out my heart and bleed me dry, I, Xiaochen, will complete this Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony to the end. When facing Xiaochen's aura, the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang, who originally held a suppressive advantage, felt somewhat stunned. He thought that after Xiaochen learned the truth, his face would turn pale and he would submit obediently. Who could have thought that the other party would be so vicious, not backing down at all? If one did not go crazy in a desperate situation, one would not survive. Facing Xiaochen's craziness and persistence, the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang was stunned for a moment before recovering his wits. In the end, he was a seventh heaven martial emperor, a major character on the same level as Emperor Wu. Having lived for a long time, he had experienced many things. Although a person like Xiaochen might not appear even once every 10,000 years, at this moment, Xiaochen was much weaker than the Western Sea Dragon King. They were not existences on the same level. As long as none of those major characters came, no matter how much Xiaochen jumped around, he would still be an ant before the Western Sea Dragon King. Furthermore, the Western Sea Dragon King still had many greater heavenly Emperor Wu of varying strength by his side. With his great might, it was impossible for Xiaochen to truly scare him. Ao Lang said coldly, "Dig out your heart and bleed? There is no need for me to go through so much trouble to kill you. However, don't worry. I, the Western Sea Dragon King, will not go to the extent of making a move on you. Since I know your persistence, I will not ask you anymore. We will just sit here and let you jump around as you please. However, if you want to open this Dragon's Gate's mountain tablet, let me tell you, there is no way." Ao Lang waved his hand and sat down with the others, looking coldly at Xiaochen. "What are you looking at?" All of you scrammed to the side. Seeing that the other guests on the tall platform had not left yet, Ao Lang frowned and scolded them. The others immediately left, not daring to linger. "As for the rest of you, scram right now as well." Immediately, Ao Lang stretched out his hand and pointed. The tens of thousands of guests drinking and chatting in the plaza were all within the range Ao Lang mentioned. This group of people felt dissatisfied, feeling that this Western Sea Dragon King was too tyrannical. However, he was a seventh heaven martial emperor. Furthermore, he had won over many holy lands and ancient noble clans. With such might, no one dared to go against him. Ao Lang looked at the red-eyed Xiaochen and said, "Don't look at me. Let me tell you this. With me around, your Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony will not be able to continue. I will not dig out your heart or bleed you. I will just sit here and not move, and I can prevent your Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony from continuing." After Ao Lang shed all pretense of cordiality, no one could find a way to deal with him. Such a shameless method made Xiaochen's hot-bloodedness stifled in his chest, unable to vent it. When the people of the Holy Land seated beside Ao Lang saw Xiaochen's sullen appearance, they revealed faint smiles on their faces. They rejoiced in their hearts. What could be happier than this? Being able to see this Qing Emperor suffer a setback. Furthermore, the Western Sea Dragon King was there to hold the fort. What could be more comfortable than this? If there was anything unhappy, the only unhappy thing was that Xiaochen had flown into the sky and received 14 gargantuan weapons in front of them. However, now the situation had returned to normal. As long as the Dragon's Gate could not be re-established, the Blue Dragon King's luck would fall. The humiliation he suffered earlier would no longer matter. Pussy. As Xiaochen felt agitated, he could not help vomiting a mouthful of blood. When the blood splattered on the tall platform, it was a startling scarlet. "Xiaochen. Big brother Xiao." The expressions of Mo Chen and the others changed as they ran over to support Xiaochen. Their faces showed both anger and worry. On the lunar palace's warship in the distant clouds, Yu Bingyun's heart tightened when she saw Xiaochen suddenly vomiting blood. She wanted to go down and investigate. "Binger." A voice came from the palace of the warship. Yu Bingyun showed a conflicted expression as she stopped. When the people on the other warship saw this scene, they all revealed cold smiles. Although this Xiaochen was strong, he was still human in the end, not a god. The Western Sea Dragon King and the others glanced over and understood. Earlier, when Xiaochen received the 12 gargantuan weapons, he had sustained significant hidden injuries. This was especially so after he used some heaven-defying arts that were not easy to use, adding injuries on top of injuries. Furthermore, Xiaochun had not rested properly during the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Now he could no longer hold on, and his injuries erupted. As the Western Sea Dragon King looked at the pale Xiaochun, he smiled faintly and said, "Everyone look carefully. I did not attack him. He vomited blood himself. Don't blame it on me." Ah, it turns out that his injuries are not light. I really thought that he would be completely fine after receiving our congratulatory gifts. The Blue Dragon King is merely SSO. As the group looked at the vomiting Xiaochun, they mocked him coldly. All of them felt extremely comfortable in their hearts. They thought back to when Xiaochun received the congratulatory gifts and invited them up, looking boundlessly graceful. It turned out that there was such a miserable moment. Emochin glared at the Western Sea Dragon King and said, "Don't go overboard." The Western Sea Dragon King laughed loudly and said, "What's wrong?" "Little girl, are you not going to let us speak? This fellow overestimated himself. Who else can he blame?" "Shameless!" Emochin shouted angrily. She could no longer endure it, so she directly charged over. A flaming holy cannon appeared above her head. She bathed in a fiery light as she threw a palm strike at Ao Lang. "The Book of Heavenly Works? Little girl, you have some fortuitous encounters. Perhaps in another 100 years, you might be a match for me. Now go back to where you came from." The eyes of Ao Lang and the other Holy Land elders lit up when they saw that holy cannon. They did not care about Emochin, who was charging over. The difference was too great. Even with the Book of Heavenly Works, she was just an ant-like existence to them. Puzai. The pale-faced Xiaochun looked at the berserk Emochin. His heart sank. He pushed off with his feet, and arrived first despite moving later. Then he placed his palm on Emochin's shoulder, blocking her in front. Ao Lang, who had been preparing to attack, smiled faintly and said, "Interesting. The Blue Dragon King truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. Despite being so injured, he is still so fast. Good movement technique. However, since I already made a move, I might as well not stop. Let's see how strong the Blue Dragon King's movement technique is." After Ao Lang spoke, he raised his palm. Flames immediately surged, and a fire dragon made of primordial energy charged at Xiaochun with bared fangs and brandished claws. This move was not very strong, just a casual strike from Ao Lang. However, in Xiaochun's current state, it was not easy for him to receive or dodge. Bang! Xiaochun did his best to dodge while carrying Emochin. In the end, he was only injured by the shock waves of this palm strike, and did not suffer any major injuries. "Your movement technique is pretty good. This broadened my horizons." When the group of people saw Xiaochun's sorry state, they guffawed loudly. Damn it! The people of the Dragon's Gate all felt frustrated. However, they could not do anything to this group of seated major characters. As Xiaochun stood up, blood leaked out of a corner of his lips. When he saw these major characters laughing so happily, rage blazed in his heart. Xiaochun had long expected that the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony would be an extremely dangerous ordeal. However, he had not expected it to be this difficult. He did not even have a chance to put his life on the line. However, Xiaochun had no regrets in his heart. As he said, Ao Lang and the others would never understand his persistence. "Blue Dragon King, I already ruined your Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Do you regret it now? Back then, I already told you that the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony could not be held. You talked to me about the bigger picture. Now, do you know what the bigger picture is? The bigger picture is on my side." Ao Lang, who felt that he already grasped the initiative, spoke with the tone of a victor as he looked at Xiaochun. Xiaochun smiled and said, "The bigger picture? What you can see is only the smaller picture. The luck of your Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace is already exhausted. All you can do is lean towards my Heavenly Star Island. Unfortunately, you blocked this path yourself. Even if you cannot hold the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony today, the fate of your Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace cannot be changed. You think that I am a clown. However, in my eyes, you are the true clown. You are jumping up and down very vigorously, but many people are laughing at you for being a fool. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.